Good evening and welcome to the Region 12 Board of Education meeting for June 16, 2014. Welcome to those present. Susan, would you take the roll, please?
Yes. Valerie Anderson, absent. Tony Bedini.
Here.
Happy to have you back. Alan Brown.
Hi.
Gregory Cava.
Here.
Michelle Gora. Here. Emily Hibbard is absent. James Hirschfield.
Here.
Kelly Lutz is absent. Jennifer Pody.
Here.
Michael Sinatra.
Here.
I am here. And Peter Tagley.
Here.
All right, so Valerie and Emily, is that it? Or?
Kelly.
And Kelly, I'm
Emily.
sorry. Emily will be late. She intends to be here. She's at a function with one of her children, I believe. All right, next on our agenda, do you want to?
Oh, I think Mike, oh, no, you're here, good.
I just got down.
You can read it.
Do you want me to do it, or would you like you guys to do it?
Please do it.
All right, fine.
Go ahead.
The policy committee would like to add a item to the agenda, which probably should go, maybe we could call it 9.2.
No, new, not new.
Oh, I guess it is new business, all right.
It's new.
Should we do 10.4?
10-4.
10.4, it is our policy regarding non-resident students, and we'd like to move it into today's agenda because our year's coming to a close, and we'd like to be able to, if everything goes well, give people a little more notice for the upcoming school year.
All right, there's a motion to add an item 10.4 to the agenda regarding non-resident students. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, so we'll add item 10.4. Thank you all. All right, moving on to recognition of certain people. First, recognition of Mr. Todd Ingersoll, USA Flags for Chicago. Unfortunately, Mr. Ingersoll could not be present tonight. Dr. Pasquino?
Yes, I'm going to try to get him here in September if I can, but he's a very busy man. He just came in from Detroit today. But Todd donated to our school a little over $1,000 so that we can buy all new American flags for every classroom at Chappaq. So they're almost all up, and it really is a nice addition to the building. So I want to thank him, and hopefully we'll get him here at the next meeting.
All right. Well, thank you to Mr. Ingersoll for that. All right, then moving on to item 3, recognition of volunteers. Dr. Cosentino.
Yes, okay. I'm going to come up here, and we have volunteers in our schools. We have wonderful volunteers who do so many things. Today was a beautiful Aloha picnic and celebration with Booth Free. I was there Friday at WPS, tomorrow at Burnham, and those are just one of the many, many examples of what the parents do for our students in our schools. Today we had great sandwiches and activities and beautiful Aloha trinkets, and Friday we actually had a pizza oven, which it's really unbelievable what our parents do. And that's just one of many, many of the really wonderful things that our parents do in our schools and outside of our schools to enrich our students. So I felt last year it would be important to recognize at least one parent from each school. So I'll ask also when the parent comes up for the principal to come up, and we'll take a picture too. We'll start with Kristen Reed, who is not here. Kristen Reed, I first met Kristen on the Long Range Planning Committee, and she's a tireless advocate for our students and a staunch supporter of the faculty and staff at Burnham. She's arranged numerous educational enrichment programs. She's always willing to pitch in and lend a hand at PTO and school events. And volunteers like Kristen are what makes Burnham such a special place. So she couldn't be here, but she got her little gift, and she thanks everyone. This year we picked a volunteer district-wide, and that was Anthony Amato. And Anthony Amato worked tirelessly for our district, helping us do the financials, again, as we prepared the long-range plan. And he worked, I mean, just endless hours with me and Don and Bob and emailing, and we were here Saturdays and evenings, and he really put a lot of his energies into providing us with the numbers that would allow us to get to a referendum. I was talking to Jonathan Costa, who was our consultant, and he said if we would have had somebody do that for us, it would have cost more than $50,000. So he saved us a lot of money. So thank you to Anthony. Anthony has 2 sons. So one at Penn State and one at Michigan? University of Michigan. I think they're at the University of Michigan this weekend. So now, okay, here we go. So now we have, let's start with WPS's volunteer, Jen Pody. Come on up, Jen, and Mrs. Jen. Come on. Nice little gift for you. Sit here, stand here, and Emily, come over, stand here. So Jen is not only a Board of Education member, Jen is also the departing PTO president at WPS because her son is moving.
No, 1 more year.
Oh, 1 more year he's still in WPS?
I get to actually.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought he was
Participate.
leaving and you were
Yeah,
leaving.
no,
Excuse
no,
me.
he's not leaving.
Okay. So you can't miss her smile and her positive energy. She's a resource to parents, an ambassador to the school, and a caring adult. Whether it's her role as PTO president or an active organizer of many activities such as Family Fun Night, Ice Cream Social, or Bingo, she gives of her time freely to serve the community. All of her work and leadership helps build a stronger WPS. Her and her husband were out there on field day last week. It is with excitement and gratitude that the WPS community recognizes Jen Pody as the volunteer extraordinaire for 2014. Now let's take a picture, come on.
Bash with you.
Yes, we do, come on. Good?
Good? Yeah, let me just take one.
There we go.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, it's fine.
Our next volunteer is from Chippewa Valley School, and that's Barbara Baird. Am I saying it correctly? Come on up, Barbara. Dance. So Barbara is a long-standing member of the high school PTSO, which was combined with the middle school PTSO this year to form a 612 organization. Thank you. For the past 3 years, Barbara single-handedly planned, organized, and operated the snack bar for all Spartan basketball games, both varsity and JV. This meant that she arrived in the mall directly from her busy job and stayed until the game was over, encouraging players and their younger siblings to sample leftovers. It will be hard to replace you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Good? Okay, thank you. And then we have Linda Schneider. Come on up, Linda. So Linda was vice president on the middle school PTO board and agreed to assist in the efforts to create a PTO that reflects one school with 2 distinctly different developmental levels of students. She's never missed a PTO meeting as a board member or a parent since her first child entered Chippewa. Good for you. That's like perfect attendance. Good for you. Linda is that consistent, reliable, hardworking volunteer that contributes in some way to every PTO function and spoil the board members with home-cooked treats at our meetings. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
We're good?
Good, okay. Now, our last person I don't think is here yet. Is Laura here? Say her last name for me. Laura Vidal. So Laura is from Booth Free. If she shows up, we'll give her beautiful apple. But at Booth Free, she's a positive presence in the school and the Roxbury community. She's a tireless advocate for the student needs and a supporter of the faculty and staff. She served as president during the 2011-12 school year. This year, she created the Booth Free Hot Lunch Program and co-chaired the Winter Wonderland auction. She can always be counted on to help with school events, and they're pleased to recognize Laura as a dedicated volunteer. So thank you, Laura, and if she comes, you let us know. So with that said, we have some cookies and coffee, so we'll mingle for a little while, and everybody please help yourself, but we'll take a picture with the volunteers all together, okay? Sheila? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Help yourself.
All right, the next item on our agenda is opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. Is there anyone who'd like to address us? All right, seeing no one, thank you. We'll move on. The next item is the consent agenda, which is minutes from the business meeting of June 2nd. Is there anyone who wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, seeing no hands, then the consent agenda is approved. Next is report of the chair. I just want to say that I attended, on behalf of the board, the Chappaqua High School graduation this past Saturday morning. It was really a wonderful event, beautiful weather we had, started at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was very inspiring. We have wonderful students here, the high school students, the whole class was very well presented, and the speakers, the class president, the salutatorian, the valedictorian. We have a lot to be proud of the students that we produce here, and Kim Gallo ran an excellent ceremony, and all the work that she and her staff have done to put these students through their high school years and get them graduated. They deserve a round of applause. Thank you very much. It's very inspiring to go there, and it's a great honor for me on behalf of the board to deliver the diplomas to the graduating seniors. So I just wanted to say that, and we have the 8th grade advancement ceremony tomorrow night here at the auditorium, and I'll be there on behalf of the board as well. All right, next, superintendent's report, Dr. Constantino.
Yes, I just want to call your attention to the Spartan Chronicle. I really think our students have, under the leadership of Alicia Robinson, have really done great things this year with the Chronicle. It was highlighted in the, I think in the New Milford Spectrum. So I'm really very proud of their work. So congratulations to them. We didn't bring the flyer, but I did want to let you know, we'll send it to you tomorrow. The CADE convention is in November. Again, it's at Mystic. The region does pay for the convention and board if you're interested in going. It really is something that I think it benefits everyone. There are a lot of different topics, and so if you can clear your calendar, you're more than welcome to attend. Personnel, we have some appointments. We hired a new school psychologist, Gabriel Vaya Alcaraz, and he works at Chappaqua, so we're happy about that. Kim Harrison, who is in the audience. Kim ran our College and Career Center for the last year, and she is now going to be a guidance counselor, so we're happy about that. Next to her is Michael McManus, who came in and subbed for Kim in the College and Career, while she subbed for somebody in guidance, and he's taking over for the College and Career. So we're really very excited about that. They're really providing a great service for our families and our students to really broaden their horizon when they think about colleges and what's next after Chappaqua. And you're going to see some of that presentation tonight. We do have 2 resignations. We have Kara Street from Burnham, and we wish her well. And we have Mark Ramo, our SRO, has decided to move on. It wasn't what he thought it would be. Love the kids. So we are now again looking for another SRO, so I'm working with Steve Sorty. And that's my report right now.
Peter?
Oh, I have one more thing. Go ahead.
No, you got it.
I had a question.
Hold
Okay, one other thing. If the referendum passes tomorrow, there will be a special board meeting on June 23rd at 6 p.m.
That's a week from tonight.
A week from tonight, and that will be to, really, it's a quick meeting to approve ed specs and a couple of other formalities so that we can get a grant to the state by June 30th. Okay, so please, we have to have 6, 7 people there, and right now we do.
I'm sorry, what time is that meeting?
That's at 6 o'clock on June 23rd.
And it's my understanding that if the grant app is not in by June 30, it has to wait another year.
Correct. So, that's important. That's it, thank you.
Where will the meeting be?
Here.
Peter, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a couple of things on my agenda regarding the superintendent. Reading all these different opinions after the vote in the newspapers on what people think we should be doing or shouldn't we be doing, one of the things that concerns me is what should we be doing? And I wonder if we shouldn't direct the superintendent either as an individual or the committee of the whole to hold a meeting with the selectmen and the finance committee chairs to find out just what's on everybody's mind regarding where we go from here. The board takes a lot of heat. You read the articles in the newspapers. But while we are empowered to come up with ideas and why should we be working for or against other views in the community, particularly political views. So I don't know whether the board would want to discuss this right now or designate the superintendent to do it, but I think we need to sit down with the selectmen and the finance committees after what just took place and what could take place tomorrow. You may want to wait to see what happens at tomorrow's vote, but I don't see any direction coming from everywhere. There are all sorts of opinions on what to do. I've heard K through 8 in the primary schools. I heard just K through 5, blending classes. Fix up the high school, don't fix up the high school. Build a new primary school, don't build a new primary school. There are so many opinions out there. I think it's time we sit down with the people who are the leaders in the towns and find out just what are they thinking. I mean, I have my own opinion on a lot of things, but collectively we try to come to some consensus as a group. But I don't think we can function currently if we don't sit down with the powers to be and find out exactly what they're looking for. I haven't heard it from anybody, except, well, we want to keep our primary school. Well, that's easy to say, but it's a much bigger issue than just keeping the primary. There's a lot more involved than I hear K through 8. Let's turn the primary schools into K through 8. So there's a lot of conjecture out there, and I think it behooves us to sit down and have some serious discussions if we don't want to do it as a board. And we should designate the superintendent to sit down with the finance committee chairs and the selectmen and find out what's on their mind. How can we go forward, you know, collectively as a group, and then hear people run in the newspapers what they think we should be doing and what many people hear in their own towns from selectmen and finance committee chairs as what they think we should be doing. So I don't know. I'd like to get something on the table so we can work on something for the future.
All right, Peter, thank you. Greg, before we get into, I don't want to get into a protracted discussion on this until we have staff here that are ready to make presentations. Perhaps we could take this item up under new business. Can we do that at that time?
I think that's fine. I think it's fine.
I know, Peter, we'll get back to it under new business.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's not like the...
All right,
We're
I'd like
looking
to
to
move
make
on
it-
to let the staff make their presentations. All right, so next, thank you, Peter.
Okay.
Next, item 8, education. Dr. Castillo.
Yes, we tried to change the format a little bit last year on the state of the schools, and I think this year we've changed it a little more to try to give you an overview of what's gone on, K to 12, maybe even pre-K to 12. So if you ladies want to come up.
So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Tonight we are actually celebrating all the hard work that our staff, students, and parents collectively did together with all of our students. And we're looking through the lens of our district mission. So we're going to be highlighting specific things having to do with optimizing student achievement, building a collaborative learning environment, and developing engaged citizens. So in the end, we have a really nice slide presentation that really, I think, will surprise all of us, because I think our students are amazing and we've done some great things this year. So we'll start with elementary.
Here. So, as Emily had said, I gave you a nice handout that just kind of is just a brief overview of how we broke it down. So the first category is about optimizing student achievement. So in terms of the elementary focus, some of the things that we really focused on this year heavily is the Common Core State Standards. In the Common Core State Standards, we did a lot of curriculum writing. We were unwrapping, the teachers unwrapped the standards. They applied those, the unwrapped standards to their lessons. They analyzed and synthesized text. And one of the biggest things that we did at the elementary level was engaging students in multiple sources. And certainly that's part of Common Core as well as preparing for SBAC, Smarter Balance Assessment. The next piece is academic achievement. As we have in the past, we continue to use data assessment, which leads to improved instruction. So we use universal assessments 3 times a year, as well as formative assessments throughout to help us drive our instruction and to know where students are. And then to also help to improve that instruction, we use a variety of different approaches when we're teaching. We use whole group, small group, and one-to-one, or using our intervention program when needed. We have intervention program both in math and in language arts. Instructional practices, both Emily and I worked with our staff in terms of improving instructional practices. We've done a lot of book studies, a lot of conversations wrapped around such things as effective questioning technique, which is so critically important. It's not just about using questions, but how to create them, how do teachers create them, how to deliver them, and teaching students to ask good questions with varying levels of cognitive demand. We also looked at best practices in teaching, such as, and we've been working on this for a long time, the gradual release of responsibility, getting students to own their own learning, collaborative activities, again, that's really part of that Common Core, having kids work together, and reflective assessment. Student engagement, very big piece along with the questioning, using high interest materials, giving students choices, letting students choose ways that they're going to represent their work, or how or what students might want to learn, and then self-assessment and reflection. And the last piece in this category for the elementary is technology. Really utilizing the smart boards, I think, to its fullest this year. I see a big difference in that. And the Chromebooks, huge, huge, huge. So we look forward to having 3rd graders and 4th graders next year. But 5th grade took on those Chromebooks very easily. It certainly made life a whole lot easier, especially during the testing piece, but a lot of research.
Yeah, I was going to ask you specifically about the deployment of technology, in particular the Chromebooks at the elementary level. I mean, I've heard some teachers say that we would be better off eliminating all technology of this nature in the elementary schools, notwithstanding the fact that there's a test. You couldn't do it. They recognized you couldn't do it without making the state rethink where they've gone. Is there a reason why you think that the technology is, number one, important and effective? Forget important, we already know why it's important, but effective. And number two, why you disagree with that. And I don't mean just disagree in the sense that you have a test that has to be taken on the computer, obviously. But why do you disagree that technology is distracting at that level or not? I think that's some of the things they say, it's distracting.
I don't think it's distracting.
Yeah, I think that,
Not teachers in our system, don't get me wrong.
I think we have to view technology as a tool for learning and presenting knowledge. And I think if we use it judiciously in the classroom, it's very effective. It's not the steady diet of a classroom. And so students are using technology as a tool to communicate mathematical concepts, to communicate observations that they're doing in science, to present information using choice in terms of topic and forum. So it's a variety of things, but it's really a tool. And I think if you keep that in perspective, I think that enhances the learning environment versus overtakes it. So I mean, that's one.
And I also say it's access Technology allows kids to delve deeper into things because they have access and they can get to those resources. So it is a tool, but it really allows them to get more information when they need that information.
And I presume that the way you use it is the reason, I know there's a little bit of a debate going on right now in the college end as to whether they should allow laptops in the lecture halls and classrooms, because there's some studies that have come out and said that note-taking is far more effective if it's done with pen and paper than if it's done with a computer. And what ends up happening is you end up getting into this sort of focus on the screen, focus on the process of taking notes without listening to what they're actually saying that you're taking notes on. So I assume that you avoid that with the way you deploy it. There must be some way that you don't think that you fall into the trap of having the kids be prisoners of the technology. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of technology, but I want to keep asking the questions as you roll it out.
Yeah, why don't we move on to the
Because I don't
upper
feel,
level?
I
Yeah.
think we're using it really effectively at the elementary, so I'm not sure if you
Well, if you want to do
feel like.
Optimizing student achievement is a lot of what I just presented to you a couple weeks ago, but what struck me as we were preparing this presentation is how much we have in common. It really didn't take us very long to come up with these common goals, and our initial goal was not to come up with common goals, but just to identify our own. Common Core State Standards. We are revising our curriculum in terms of Common Core State Standards. Our teachers are unwrapping those standards, applying it to instructional practice, and so on and so forth. The academic achievement that I've spoken to you about is focused around what data do we use at this secondary level to inform instruction. There is plentiful data ready to be used at the elementary level, and it really lessens as you move up. So we were very excited to try NWEA. We're looking even more forward to when SBAC comes up with its interim assessments and practice work. Instructional practices is something that we too look at every day, and it's funny, one of the things that we talk about the most is releasing responsibility to students. Kids can learn all kinds of interesting things from some really smart and advanced and well-traveled teachers, but when they experience for themselves, when they start to talk about it themselves, when they start to, again, ask those good questions that we talk about all the way through, that's when the learning is really becoming valid and important. And the best evidence that I can show you of that is our school newspaper, which, unlike many high school newspapers, would just have things about sports and activities and kids, which is wonderful. We also have world events. We also have AP versus early college experience, which is a very important and a good debate for students to know. What are you signing up for when you sign up for AP? What's different about the UConn early experience? ECE is, it shouldn't just be UConn. ECE happens at a lot of different places. But what are the differences? Students should know. They should be smart consumers. Student engagement is also wrapped up in this, and we've wrapped pretty much everything up in NEASC. We are well into our self-study. By the end of this week, each of our committees will have a draft report. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we've done a lot of really good and important work. We also have collected samples of student work, and we are allowing those samples to tell the story of how do we put our core values and guiding beliefs, how do we bring them to life in our school? What does that look like? Do students know what they are? Do parents understand what they are? So on and so forth. So I think, again, what struck me is that while we are very disparate levels of achievement and development, we have very common goals, and that speaks very highly for the experience that your children will get in this district, because we really are on a path that has meaning and rigor.
And to move on to building a collaborative learning environment, the elementary schools have primarily focused on implementing the responsive classroom approach. We both had the motto of CARES, which stands for cooperation, assertiveness, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. And the students really learn about what each of those means and how it looks in practice to them as they explore with their teachers and as well as through our assemblies and community meetings. We are still proactive in teaching explicitly social skills, so we have our program of Second Step and Steps to Respect, and that's in every classroom in our schools, and we also had the privilege of having some of our guidance counselors and school psychologists offer some of their instructional expertise in those areas. The DARE program, we're very thankful that all 3 regions still support that program, and the students really learn how to dodge the influence and really focus on effective problem solving, so that if they have to make hard choices, they can really go through a step-by-step model and really weigh out the consequences either way. Student discourse is really important to this element, because student discourse allows students a way to communicate with one another for a common purpose. So in order for us to teach this at the elementary level, we introduce it through accountable talk phrases. So we teach kids, how do you respond to someone, how do you listen to someone? So such things as like, I respectfully disagree, you might hear, or can I add to that thought, or may I piggyback on that thought? So they're using these phrases that allow them to have this rigorous discourse at a very young age. And then by the time they get to high school, they're well equipped with the skills to have really deep conversations. And then the last piece about collaborative learning environment are the pieces that our PTO and parent community contribute, such as the ice cream socials and district dance that we had this year, family fun nights and bingo enrichment activities, where we bring our families together and our students together so they develop friendships and common experiences. And then our community is amazing. We have such a rich community, and that they always offer to help in many ways. And so our garden club and different types of things where they're offering us grants to do exciting enrichment things. So we have great partnerships. And then, of course, our newsletters. We're all very strong about making sure we have a school newsletter and that we offer information through our region review. So all of that together sort of builds a community, starting with the students with good, solid social skills, building out into a larger part of our school, and then, of course, our community. So that's the elementary.
I can back up part of what Emily is saying in the fact that our 6th graders that entered the secondary school this year, they took it upon themselves to look at when students are not kind to each other, even when it's not in great proportions, it still affects the student's day. And they talked about it with their counselor in developmental guidance, and they came up with a solution. They created a club called the KIND Club. KIND is an acronym for Kids Increasing Nice Deeds. And when we talk about releasing learning to students, that came from kids, it's being promoted by kids. I left my KIND bracelet in my purse, I apologize. I should have that. I wear it in school every day. And that's one good piece of evidence that students are really embracing this learning and then taking it upon themselves. 612 vertical alignment refers to our students the plan for them is a secondary plan, and it starts in 6th grade and it has a solid path that goes all the way up until that graduation day. Vertical alignment is a very powerful tool for instruction because students continually are building on what they learned before. And as you can see by the first thing that we talked about, many of those goals are in common anyway, so that vertical alignment is a very powerful learning tool. Our core values and guiding beliefs, you've heard me talk about this before. They have come to a point where it's time to measure them. We've created a system to do that. We're making explicit connections to the curriculum, and you'll hear more about that when I do my next thing tonight. Our 612 advisory, every student is involved approximately twice a week for most of the school year with an adult other than their teacher, whom they get to know. They review goals with this person. They talk about their ambitions. They perform community service acts so that we are modeling our citizenship requirement and our citizenship learner outcome. Advisory is a very highly recommended tool in secondary school reform, which is 612, in terms of making sure that every student has a chance to make strong connections to his or her school. The learner outcomes you'll be hearing more about later, but again, they are those big skills that were identified with a joint effort of the community, the administration, the faculty, students, everybody, that said, okay, when you cross that stage in high school, as the kids did this weekend, what are those big ideas that you should be familiar with and you should know how to apply in different situations? You've heard me say many times that we're getting kids ready for jobs that don't even exist right now. So they better understand those big skills and understand how to apply them to disparate situations. And our PTO, you heard earlier, unified to a 6-12 PTO with common goals. It's lovely for me as a principal to be able to sit down with them and talk about our ideas that give me great feedback. It's been a learning year in trying to communicate effectively to 2 different populations to try to make sure that I have a good handle on the developmental levels involved in 2 different sets of activities, and that I don't confuse one level with the other level. A promotion ceremony is different from a graduation ceremony, is different from Aloha Day, is different from on and on and on. And you know I can go on. So I think I've given you a pretty good picture there.
So the last category before we turn it over to music and picture is develop engaged citizens. So at the elementary level, we divided into 3 parts: community projects, student council, and leadership opportunities. So community projects in all 3 elementary schools do a lot of the same. Jump Rope for Heart is huge, Pennies for Patients. We do lots of food drives, mitten and coat drives, letters to the servicemen and supplies. This year, Costanza, we participated quite a bit with that. Supporting local families. We had a family that lost their entire house in Bridgewater, and the students got together and raised some funds to give this family, even though we don't know them, but supporting the community. Student counts, and there's many more of those. Student council, they meet regularly in all 3 schools. They discuss and initiate ideas for school spirit and school improvement. Lots of ideas come from it. They also participate very often in our school climate committee because they want to partake in doing some things that help to increase a positive school climate. And then lastly, the leadership opportunities, peer leadership jobs. And you might not think it's big, but it is. Putting up the flag every day, that's a huge job at the elementary school. Recess leaders. We have leaders that escort the students back to their classes. Peer mediators. We have students that attend the leadership conference, and that's a great opportunity. And we usually do that over a 2-year span so that we can spread the wealth, and we send a variety of students. Opportunities to present and perform in front of school community. There's lots of those opportunities, whether we're doing whole school morning meetings or coming together in an assembly of some sort. So those are the things at the elementary level.
We too are very involved in community service, as you saw during senior projects where thousands upon thousands of dollars were raised for a variety of causes and different efforts that our students undertook. I mentioned to you before that every advisory does 1 or 2 community service days during the course of the school year, so that we are modeling for our students what community service looks like. If we're going to require it of them, then we should be modeling it ourselves. Our student council are my go-to folks for different things that are happening in the school. If I have a question about something we'd like to celebrate, something we'd like to put our efforts to, the easiest thing for me to do is during CAF time, we head off, the student council heads off to Mr. Winkle's room with me, and we talk it out. They did that earlier this year when that poor little girl was stabbed at Jonathan Law High School. Student council didn't wait for me. They took it upon themselves to find out what her interests were, and they donated money to the Jonathan Law Theater program in this girl, memorializing this girl and giving support to another school that we have very, very little contact with. I was really very proud of that. Our peer leaders also have a role in the school community in terms of identifying ways that we can increase spirit, ways that we can be sure that students are kind to one another, ways that we can get involved in the community. Peer leaders go off to their conference, they come up with these goals, and they attempt to implement them each year in our school, which is another powerful thing. And our National Honor Society has taken a very visible role in our school. Each National Honor Society member is assigned to either a middle school or freshman homeroom. They go to those homerooms during advisory, and they're there and available for kids that need help with their homework or their studies. Now, this is even, what classically happens is that National Honor Society say, we're offering ourselves up for tutoring, and if you ask for it, we'll get it to you. Well, it's a whole lot nicer when someone is right there, you're getting to know them, and you're very comfortable asking that person that question. It's been a very, very positive influence on our students, and we're going to look to more ways that our students can interact with each other on those disparate levels to celebrate us as one school, and also to take advantage of what those different developmental levels have to offer one another. So there are lots of ways that we develop engaged citizens, and what I especially like is when they do it on their own, and we can just say, hey, good for you, honey. And we get to do that a lot.
So next we just have a brief slideshow of just some of the examples that we share here, kind of highlighted in pictures. And just to note, the very last song is WPS chorus.
Thank you, ladies. Does anybody have any questions for any of the presenters? On board? All set? Kelly?
Yeah, just a question and a comment. First, the advisory section that the high school has, I've heard great things from parents and students about that.
Great.
That is really being enjoyed and felt a valuable innovation. And for the early college with UConn, is there a SAT or something they have to present to enter into it?
No, they do not have to present an SAT score. The students sign up for the course, and we do not limit students by their levels of achievement. If they want to work hard and achieve well in that class, then that's just fine with us. If the student passes the course to the standards of the school, UConn does it, Western, a lot of different schools don't do it. First of all, the teacher goes through a vetting process that he or she is qualified to teach. They become adjunct professors at the college. And we have several of our teachers that are adjunct at UConn, at WestConn, and a couple of other places. If they achieve at the levels that the school expects, then they get a college transcript. So they leave high school with a University of Connecticut transcript that says they passed A, B, C, D. And it's not like AP, where you have to take an exam and achieve at that level, but not all colleges accept those credits. I happen to like the early college experience very much, especially for that reason.
Now, we don't have an articulation agreement with either WestConn or with Naugatuck Valley right now, right?
We do. We have an adjunct professor from Western, or two, and we have 3 teachers who are UConn adjuncts that offer our students courses.
Okay. Are they enrolled in a for-credit program with those schools right now?
For the courses in which they are participating in right here at Chicago.
Do they have to pay for the courses, or we cover that?
We don't. That's an early college experience that the universities offer.
So the parents can pay the courses? If they're enrolled in an early college course here, do the parents pay, or
No.
do you pay?
No, we do.
We do, okay. Do we have a discounted tuition rate for that, or?
No, I don't know exactly what the tuition rate is, but I promise you I'll get you that information.
Maybe Todd knows. You want me to jump in?
Oh, thank you, Todd. I forgot to forget. He whiz by, I think that's sooner.
I'm sorry, so the question was in regards to ECE?
Yes.
Yeah, do we have an articulation agreement with either WestConn or Naugatuck, and are we getting reduced rates for that?
We don't have an articulation agreement at this time with Naugatuck or with WestConn or with UConn. UConn ECE program is $85 a class. And that cost is paid by the families at this point. The argument there is that it's a UConn credit class, so it's a 4-credit class. That class at UConn would cost you.
VHS we paid for.
The VHS we paid for, yeah. And same thing with WestConn. So it's a nominal fee. It's
Well,
about.
WestConn's not nominal. I understand we don't have an articulation agreement with them, and there's no discount at the moment with
We have an
WestConn.
adjunct professor that's WestConn.
Okay.
So that cost is, I think it's around the same as the UConn cost. And so I guess that's an articulation agreement. It's the same vetting process to become an adjunct professor, but it's not articulation in the sense of the word where with Naugatuck, if you had articulated classes, you would really leave with close to a degree or something like a degree. We just worked out one with New England Tech for their programs, and that is definitely one of our focuses for the future is articulation agreements.
Do we have agreements that our older kids can go off campus to Naugatuck or WestConn and take courses there at a discount yet, or are we working?
We don't have that currently, but we will accept college credit, so we do have some students that will do that on their own, and then we will take their college credit. It has to be approved ahead of time, but that's different than the class that we offer within the school.
Can we negotiate a discounted fee with those institutions for the benefit of our students?
Yep, and that would be part of that articulation agreement with Naugatuck Valley or WestConn.
Yeah, I hope we work on that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the early college credits are great, especially if you're staying within the University of Connecticut system, whether community college, WestConn, UConn, but a lot of other colleges do not accept dual enrollment credit if it is done on the high school campus. They do not transfer the credit.
ECE looks different though. ECE looks like you're at UConn. So that's a nice thing that's different than the articulated agreements. ECE, it's like you get a UConn transcript, and if anyone saw it from outside, it's just like you were there. So it is just like having that UConn credit, which is very portable, especially with the popularity of UConn.
But oftentimes kids do not get, like, if you take a particular course, you don't get credit at college for that particular course, but you get credit for an elective.
But there's a big list of colleges that do not accept any dual credit done on a high school campus.
Right.
And it's a long list of colleges.
And if you look at those articulate agreements, typically that's a plan to try to encourage those kids to go to the campus.
Right.
The articulate agreement, and I know with New England Tech, that's the plan. It is an affordable credit. It's if you're going to New England Tech, these are the credits that match up with what we have, so that's more than dual enrollment articulated
So
agreement.
within Connecticut, within our local. but
UConn
if you're-
UConn and WestConn credits are different, the way we do them. The way we do them, it's like you're taking the WestConn course here at Chappaqua, same thing for
I know.
UConn. That's different than the dual enrollment course, which is articulated. So if you went to UConn, you've matched up those courses.
They're
But if-
identified as dual enrollment.
But if you apply to Boston College, let's say, or Duke,
Mhm.
it specifically says on their admissions information, we will not
Uh-huh.
allow dual credit from classes that are taken at a high school.
Mhm.
I just want our parents to know that.
They do.
Okay,
They
so
do.
there's
And
no.
I don't know that anybody that's going to Duke really thinks that a Naugatuck Valley credit is going to have a lot of meaning. You know, I mean, that's just, the worst thing that can happen is that student gets excellent experience in a very
agree,
rigorous
yeah.
course. You know, the teaching and learning is very, very sound. The credits get a little mushy sometimes. Colleges are competitive businesses. They're not going to make it all that easier for you to arrive as a junior.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a lot of income they lose.
I think in a lot of cases, those courses are being used to bump a student forward into a course sequence. So instead of taking the English 101, for example, or the equivalent course, you can then bump into English 103 or 105, you know, that equivalent course at the next level. So that's typically what's happening, and that's similar with APs. If they're
Exactly.
giving AP credit, great, but a lot of the colleges are going away from that and using it just as placement testing.
Right.
But kids do those classes for a lot of different reasons. And there is a value added for classes if you're going to go to WestConn or you're going to go to UConn, which many of our kids look at. You know, maybe they don't stop it, but that's where they start.
I
So
also
that
see a
saves
lot of
us-
encouragement in having the kids who do the dual enrollment take the AP exam as well,
Mhm.
just to have
Yep.
it for the
Yep,
college.
We do that in some of our world languages, so that we can offer more students higher level world languages. We prepare them for the exam, but it's not a typical AP course. But our students fare pretty well on the exam anyway. Mhm.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, then 8.2, review on career and college center services for 2013-14.
I'm back. So good evening. Really excited to be here tonight to talk to you about the Career and College Center and you know what we offered this year. This was year one of the Career and College Center, and you know I had the pleasure to work with Kim Harrison and Michael McManus this year, both talented and very energetic individuals. Also Sharon Brennan, who was our educational consultant. Who really helped us this year look at our program, benchmark it versus other programs, and really improve our services overall, both at the Career and College Center level, but also at the counseling services level. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
All right, so let's see. The SBS College and Career Center serves as a resource for students and families for their post-secondary planning, facilitating students entering the college, the military, or the workforce. That way, when they leave Chappaqua, they have a plan of what they want to do, whether they're joining the service. They want to go into a tech school or join the workforce, or what colleges they want to go to, what the college process is about.
So our programs that were offered this year is on the next slide, 2013-14.
So let's see, the College and Career Center is actually right over there if you look. It's centrally located in the building itself, which is nice. That way we have access to the middle school students as well as high school students. It's big enough room where we can have the different college representatives from the different schools come in and talk to students. That way we're not cramped in a specific small room. There's also a lot of room for materials and books as far as scholarships, college application processes, and stuff like that. So it is a nice room to have.
And what we're going to do, that's the bulleted list. We're going to run through and give you a little bit of highlights of each of those programs, but these are the programs that were implemented this year. So first up, Naugatuck Valley College Experience. This year we brought a group of students to Naugatuck Valley. It was a program that Kim had put together through contacting the admission office at Naugatuck Valley. We timed it with their hospitality management open house day, and that was a real win. And, we're going to try and do that in the future from now on. What the day was is it opened up with a tour of the building. Students got the opportunity to meet different departments and see a lot of the areas that Naugatuck Valley has in their facility. Areas that some of them I haven't seen before. We got to go up into the nursing area and see the nursing labs. They have a couple different observation rooms. They have dummies that are robotic that people can work on. They have a NICU, and so students were working with the NICU little robots, and really some very advanced stuff. And I think the exciting thing for me to see was that some of our students really alerted on that and saw that as a possible career program. And one of the nice things is there is a need for that level of service in healthcare. And students within 2 years can get trained and then get out in the workforce and have a very viable job with a great set of skills. We had 23 students that participated. They learned a little bit more about the application process. Our target audience for this was students that weren't sure if they were going to go to college and students that had expressed interest in Naugatuck Valley. So it was a dual interest program. And one of my personal goals this year, my learning outcomes, was to try and identify those students that were traditionally underserved and to try and encourage them to think about what will you do after you leave high school. And some of them aren't really sure until the day of graduation what they're doing. So those were the kids that I was focusing on, really trying to get them to think about, okay, what's that next step going to be? And that was sort of our focus this year.
One of the nice things about the Naugatuck trip was it not only provided information for students about Naugatuck, but also in terms of registering and applying to college in general. There was a great individual there who provided extensive overview of kind of the college application process in general, so it didn't apply specifically to Naugatuck and kind of led into other things as well.
What grade were they in?
These were juniors and seniors. I think I did actually have a couple sophomores. Yeah, a couple sophomores as well. The advanced manufacturing at Naugatuck Valley is an amazing facility. It's from a state grant through Governor Malloy. They have CNC machines, and they have 6-axis machines, 3D printers. There's a CAD lab right next door, and it's exciting for our kids. Some of the kids here were in CAD classes, computer-aided design, and they are like, oh, I was doing that in class the other day. So they could see the connection between how this learning environment happens and then taking it out into the workroom. And understand what a work site is, that you have to have safety glasses, you've got to be dressed appropriately. There was a safety record board, and they had over 90 days of no injuries at all. So that was exciting. We got to see some of the products there, and some of the output of what they were doing.
Specifically relating to that program too, we did have a professor invite 2 of our students during lunch to sit in, and it was kind of this informal situation. Now we have high school students interacting with students at Naugatuck and seeing what it would be like, and seeing that there are staff members there that are willing to, go out of their way at lunch time to invite kids or help them out.
Yeah, he had it was almost like a star pattern metal block that had been cut in a lot of different ways, and then colored gold. It was really cool. The highlight of the trip was definitely the hospitality management, and it was exciting for me because 2 of my former students were actually in the program. I didn't know that they had gone other places and they'd actually come back to this program, but their hospitality management is top notch. I've been really impressed the times I've gone. Right out of their hospitality management is a full dining room, so the manager of that program really is a restaurant manager. So you're learning both sides of the business, both the back side and the front side, and also learning how to run a business. So it's really pretty cool stuff. And 2 of my students that weren't sure what they were doing were so excited about the program they've now applied and have been accepted into the culinary arts, so they're going to be going there next year. So I was really proud of that. We did some surveys, and this is the post-survey. So out of the 23 kids, out of going to Naugatuck Valley that day, 10 that said that they could see themselves as a Naugatuck Valley student. And again, majority of these kids weren't sure what they were doing before we went.
It was different to ask them on the bus ahead of time.
Right.
What do you expect from this day? What's going to happen? And then to have kids after say, wow, half of them said, maybe, or definitely we could see ourselves as student trips. So just perspective.
It's a real positive. And then also, the thing, what did they like best about the trips? And this will help us next year as we're looking forward to, improve our program. The hospitality management was definitely a win. There was some great food there, plus having 2 Chappaqua grads, they could see across the table serving them and having cooked the meals. They were really excited for that. And then the second part was the overall tour. It was a great week. Next up is Alumni Day. We invited the seniors, the past grads from 2013 back to come and talk to current juniors and seniors on site. And we had 15 former students that chose to come back and talk about their experience. Our goal there, and one of the reasons we asked the graduates from the previous spring, is that everything's still fresh in their mind about what happened at Chappaqua and those connections between Chappaqua and their new site. And got to see a few of these. We gave them some prompts on questions, trying to keep it clean, no colorful stories about the dorms. But really getting some of that information about, what was my Chappaqua experience and how did it connect to what I'm now doing in college. And time and again, I hear from students when I was going around listening to these presentations that the senior project presentation, the senior project experience for them is one of the most beneficial. And I think that's good for our juniors and seniors to hear, because a lot of them, are freaking out a little bit about the senior project. They're getting worried about how am I going to accomplish this year? How is this going to connect to my life? And to hear from graduates that talk about how they can get up in front of their class and talk for 15, 20 minutes without any problem at all, and their classmates in college are freaking out about 5 minutes of presentation. And that'll be 5 minutes. I talked for 45 minutes or an hour last year in my senior project. Now, that's no big deal. I had to think of problems. I had to come up with solutions. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. But also, again, trying to get kids to understand that next step will happen. But sometimes seniors aren't really sure how it's all going to come together, and then what will it look like when I go on. So I'm really proud of this program. Okay. All right, and then next up, Kim took a group to Bristol Tech.
Similar to the Naugatuck Valley trip, in that we had a lot of the same students go to both Naugatuck Valley and Bristol Tech. Obviously, the difference here is that there are more technology or certificate programs versus a little bit of a different setup there. More hands-on activities for that day. Students definitely spent a lot more time, I felt, in this situation, speaking directly to students that were in certificate programs and speaking directly with them about how, what paths they went through. Bristol Tech is also a high school, so they do have 2 years of high school as well. So students can go post or during high school.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Bristol Tech does offer both 2 years of high school experience, or you can attend after high school.
All right, thank you.
And then next up was Kickstart. Kickstart was another program that Naugatuck Valley, we partnered with Bethel High School this year. And again, aiming at juniors that wouldn't traditionally think that college is their next step, that they're not sure what they're going to do, or they're not really sure that college is what they want to do. So again, that goes back to my goal this year of looking at students that aren't really sure of what they're going to do after they leave. And so that's what this program was. We joined in with Bethel. Very similar field trip to what we did in the fall. I think the big difference is that we didn't have hospitality management to try and sweeten the deal, so to speak. But they did get a nice overview of the different careers there. The department chairs came in and rotated through in 2 cycles of what classes they could offer and what degrees kids could get and how the admission process works again, but again, different group of kids, targeted mostly at juniors.
During the Kickstart program, they also had a few keynote speakers, one of which was a law enforcement officer. He kind of talked about his path to get to that point in time. And something that really was interesting to me was that we had 2 students who were a little, I don't know if they were disinterested or what about the day, but they decided to go and then saw this presentation and came back and said, hey, we want to go and shadow a law enforcement officer for a junior job shadow. So it was kind of see how the programs blend together.
All right. Well, this was a joint project between me and Kim this year. It was basically, out of all the gyms, 54 students took place. took part of the job shadow. It was really nice to share from what I've heard is that the kids were able to choose where they wanted to go. So if they wanted to shadow a pharmacist, say, we've had students go to the United Nations in New York City for the day to talk to politicians. All over. We even had a student who go to the Nolan Aquarium for marine biology. So it's really a very diverse group of careers they went through.
Actually, 2 of our students that participated in Junior Job Shadow were asked to, one was asked to apply for an internship opportunity while they were at their Junior Job Shadow, did receive it later on, and actually the second one, I think, I'm not sure if they were asked the day of or after, but they also received an internship opportunity directly from Junior Job Shadow.
And I think one of our takeaways out of Junior Job Shadow this year is that the format was changed. It's the first time we've done it from the Counseling Department and the Career College Center, is that we individualize the Job Shadow experience before we sort of set up sites and kids would go in a group. And one of the things I've heard from kids in the past is that I'm interested in maybe the music industry, but really this isn't exactly what I wanted. So this year we really allowed students to either pick their own or come pick from a la carte menu of options. And I think that genuine experience is positive in a couple of ways. It allows students to see, is this something I really like or not? Because there's a pros and cons to that. And sometimes when you get on a job site, what you thought of that job is not what they do day to day. And I know, my own son has encouraged him to do the same thing. He has his experience as well. So really excited that the way that this was taken on. And this was about the time that Kim was in the middle of this, and we pulled her out and jumped her into a long-term sub, and then Mike jumped in, middle of the river, and they did a great job partnering. And I was really happy that Kim continued with her piece of it, even though she had already taken up a full-time other job in addition, and then helping Mike transition into it. So they did a great job with this. I think our goals here would be to increase that participation rate so that we get all kids out. And again, looking back at it, that group that didn't go is most of those students are the ones that I took on my field trips this year and my target group, the ones that aren't really sure where they're going. One of the goals this year was to increase our workshops and increase our public awareness of what's going on. And one of our premier programs this year was a college admission panel. All 3 of us worked on this together. It was an idea that had been floated to me from a couple other guidance programs in the state. And I thought it was a great idea. Sharon Brennan was like, yeah, let's go for this. And so we went out to bid on some of the schools, and I was happy to land Yale. That was from Sharon Brennan. And then also the connections that we had with the other admission officers. So they came in and did a panel discussion to parents and students. We also invited Rumsey and Gunnery, because we're trying to build like a partnership with the area schools so that we can provide a larger audience to attract some of the other admission officers that wouldn't necessarily come if it was just Chabot. And so, the students came in, they got to hear from the admission officers. They had done a pre-lesson in advisory where they had to predict or come up with questions that they might ask. They were given a prompt of what some typical questions are that you would ask an admission officer and then write their own. I think, my takeaway is that I'd like more practice with that, because what I found is the kids were sort of intimidated by the group. And next year I'm going to make sure I got some plants set to get that going at least. But it was a great event, and really exciting to hear it from the experts, the people that are out in the field, the people that deal with it day to day, and really can give that inside information to students that they may hear from us, but they don't hear it quite as well. We surveyed after, and I'm going to let Mike jump in and talk a little bit about the survey.
All right. It was 8 questions we had come up with, basically asking them to rate what they thought of their experience during the panel survey. I broke it down as, you'll see, 2 questions per slide. Basically, like the first one here says, do the panelists represent a broad spectrum of post-secondary institutions, whether they strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. So basically, that's what we did with all of the 8 questions, asking the students various topics. The presenters were well informed for their area of expertise. Again, you can see the results in the green versus the purple based on the questions. And then new relevant information regarding the admission process was provided, whether or not they gain insight into the whole process of admission and getting into college. Basically, they found it informative because we want them to, tell us, be honest with us, whether or not they're actually getting something on the program.
And we're using, so we've done a much better job this year of doing survey and then using that information to inform our program so that we can both make sure we're hitting the programs that students and parents want, but also to improve our program as we move forward. The next one that we did this year was early financial planning. And this is the idea of trying to get information out to parents at earlier grades because a lot of our programming is really aimed at the middle high. And my perspective has changed this year by being in Burnham. I really got me thinking more about younger grades. And so this was one of the things we put together. Mrs. Steinis took this on in conjunction with Career and College Center. And we put together two presenters, one from Chelsea and Steve Haas and his group, and talked about, what is this idea of getting ready for college? What is the cost out there? How do we start saving? And it's scary when we think about the figures. It's scary when we look at what's out there. But the other side of that, for many people, is how do we start this planning early on? What are my options? How can I really start tackling this big hurdle? So that was one of our other new programs this year. And then college.
Okay, well, 2012, 2013, 52 schools visited Chappaq. This current year, we've had 65 schools visit. Now, to date, I've been in contact with a lot of schools. 83 schools so far have expressed interest in coming to Chappaq to visit in the fall. As of yet, there's 11 that have confirmed. As they come up, we'll be putting them on Naviance. That way we can do email blasts to students, to parents, to let them know who's coming, when they're going to be here. That way, if they want to send their child with questions themselves, they get more than willing to come in. Okay, so let's see, workshops. During the course of the year, we did a survey with students to see what kind of workshops that they would be interested in learning as far as college is concerned. There were 5 choices they had: managing a college visit, career exploration, completing the Common App, and interviewing skills. So basically, the top 2 choices were career exploration and managing a college visit. So that's going to be upcoming. Okay, this is the results. To get them to kind of get them involved in more college.
And one of the things we're looking to do next year is we're embedding some of our workshop pieces and the survey topics into advisory. So the councils will be going in to teach the lessons in advisory, but also pull out workshops to assist those students that maybe aren't sure or need more follow-up on some of those areas. And then planning for next year.
All right. Basically, what we'd like to see as the College and Career Center is workshops for students, but also for parents, especially when there's students who are in high school getting closer to college. Financial aid, common application, things of that sort. Also, talking about the future planning guide, that's going to be coming out
In the fall
as well. Also, we'd like to include the middle school students with the College and Career Center, getting them started on that path of thinking about what I want to do when I get older. Also, in the career fair, and starting the process of setting up one for the 6th through 12th grades here for the spring.
And on next Tuesday, the week from Today's Monday. Today's Monday? Feels like Tuesday. All right, a week from tomorrow, we will be meeting together at the Accounting Services to review our year and also look at what we're doing next year. Sharon Brennan's coming back to meet with us to do a review of the year. It's hard for me as I look back to believe how much we did this year, how far we've come, and, especially with everything that went on with staff turnover and all the programs that we set out as goals at the beginning of the year and how much we got accomplished. So I'm really proud of that. I want to thank you for that opportunity and for your support. Questions or comments?
I have one. The early financial planning for college, you said that you were, how early, what was the youngest folks that you met with?
It was early grade, so I think second grade, we had some families, and I think we didn't have the turnout. I didn't expect a lot because it was a new program. I also, as a parent of younger ones myself, I don't know that I'd go. The reality of it scares me. So I think it's probably good to be thinking about. I know it's something I need to do, but it's sort of like going to the dentist. I don't really like going there either. But yeah, it is. I think at least it's a service, because if you can start moving your money, if you can start looking at what you have and how you reallocate it, and just what the products are that are out there that you can use, I think it's good information. So that's what we're trying. And sort of a take it or leave it.
I just wanted to say that I also appreciated the use of the video because I was not able to attend the college panel. I really wanted to, but I watched it the next day or 2 days later. So that was really great. And also, all of a sudden, I started getting emails about the college visits. So I don't know, somehow they got put into the system, and that was great too, because then I can sort of follow up with my child to see if she's listening or reading her mail. So I appreciated that.
And that's an
Thank
area
you.
of focus for us. We have not managed Naviance as well as I would like, and that's definitely one of the things we're going to be focusing on. Our goal is to have 9th through 12th graders really enmeshed in it, and make sure that the information that's in there is up to date, and that it's getting out to everyone that needs it. Having school emails this year really helps with students, so we're doing blasts, and this year was mostly junior seniors. They're getting that information. And I was checking in to make sure, you guys see our emails, you're getting those? And the kids were all saying yes. But I think, making sure that communication is out there.
Also on the issue of affordability, is anybody working with our student athletes to make sure that their transcripts align with NCAA requirements? Because I know it's a really onerous task. And but my experience also is that not only can a student receive athletic scholarship assistance, but if they really want an athlete, even schools who don't give athletic scholarships will give them additional aids and grants. And so that's a great way to defer quite a large amount of a student's tuition if they can align, but they have to align with this NCAA guideline, which is tough.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's on my list for the summer, is to add to our program of studies the courses that are NCAA approved. Almost all of ours are, but there are a few that the NCAA doesn't consider to be NCAA approved, so that when students sign up for the classes, they'll know NCAA approved.
And they have to have a distribution. Does somebody work with them to make sure they have that distribution?
Well, we sit down, one of the questions that we do, and this district has made a really strong commitment to those one-to-one family meetings. And so that is one of the questions that come up in that meeting. Are you planning on playing sports, or are you considering playing sports in college? And at that point, once that alert comes to the counselors, then we're going through that conversation. And it is one of the things that I'm really proud of that we do. That doesn't happen in many schools where you're doing a one-to-one sit-down with your counselor and a comprehensive review of your program. And that just doesn't happen. So that is where that conversation really goes. One of my goals this year was to have an NCAA night, like a college athletics, and have like a athletic director from college or college coach come in, somebody that does, it just didn't happen with everything that was on the list. But that is on the plan for next year, is to have them come in. And understanding what that experience adds to college, not necessarily just that recruiting process, because I think that's important as well, but as you mentioned, like a D3 school where, you might be able to pull in for an activity that isn't necessarily scholarship bearing, but they are bringing other monies to bear because of that. But also just the experience of club sports or being involved on campus, so that there's a lot more to that experience than maybe playing that varsity sport. I'm trying to get that experience as well. So that's on my list for next year.
Just a quick question. I think it's great that you're increasing the number of college rep visits here in Chicago.
We're excited.
So much easier for the students. Is there a way for a student who's interested in a college that doesn't come to Chicago to find out, for example, that they might be going, the rep might be going to Brookfield High or might be going to New Milford High, and how do you communicate that back to the students?
So the Danbury Mall College Fair is one of the biggest ones, and so that list is published to the kids through here. I don't know if we've done it or not, but we do publish it around the building, and that comes up, that's in October. And then the Litchfield College Fair is one of the other big ones. Mike's on this, so that's one of the conversations we've been having on quite a bit. If they're not coming here, then where are they going? And are there like mini fairs? There's a lot of the private schools in our area with mini fairs. So is that a way that they can access? College Week Live is one of the electronic college visits. It's a virtual college visit. So, and that's one of the things we're looking at. We started playing with it this year, but we really didn't get that far with it. But that's another way that you have an online chat with an admission rep, have that conversation that it's going to be more than just surfing their website.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd and Kim, Mike, thank you. All right. Moving on to 8.3, superintendent's goals.
Yes, a lot of my goals have been on display tonight for the last hour. I'm just going to go through them quickly. I did make copies only because I didn't get them on Google Docs till about 2:30, 3 o'clock today. So I wasn't sure if people would have them. I'll just go through them quickly. Number one was the vision and mission, which is complete. Next year it'll be a very strong part of our publicity in the community, on any brochures, all of those things. Goal number two, which is the board goal number one, design and implement a rigorous and engaging curriculum. That's a continuous goal. We are working on that. Mrs. Jabrito, Mrs. Ferreira, the staff, the instructional leaders are doing a lot to make that happen. I know at Chapag, we're really trying to get a lot of the work done before NEAS comes. We also have introduced assessments, NWEA, which has been very helpful, especially in the upper grades where they didn't really have formative assessments to tell you what kids know so that you can teach to that and reassess them. So we're really very excited about that. SRBI also has been a very big support for our students. We've always had interventions and supports in the elementary schools, but now we have it in the middle school and the high school, and it makes a big difference when students need assistance, whether it's math or reading or writing. We schedule them for time in an intervention period so that they can get help and really try to fill up those gaps that may have arrived through their educational career. So that's an ongoing work. We are working on getting what we can online, but we also will have, right when we get back from school in September, we'll have a workshop with board members, and Teresa and Lori will meet with them to go over some of the curriculum that's already done. So we'll do that. Number three, I'm very proud of number three, the strong leadership team, I think, and developing a cohesive grade 6 to 12 school. I think from what you heard from Kim and Todd and the others, a lot of work has gone in to make this building a 6-12 institution. We still have more work to go, but a lot has gone on. Part of that has been my work with the administrative council. We meet about once a week, sometimes it's once every 2 weeks when things get busy, to really be on the same page, to talk about where we're going, how we can help each other. We have done a lot of work with the instructional leaders who are 6-12 and the coordinators who are pre-K to 12. And if you went to any of the concerts or the art shows, you'll see that the coordinators are really having an impact on student performance, student work, and PD for those teachers, so that now we have a continuum of art teachers, of PE teachers, of music teachers. Same thing with math and humanities, et cetera, et cetera. We did a lot of work this year with Power School, the new assessments, the grading, and all of those things, the new SBACs, the Chromebooks, getting the infrastructure in Chapag, what it needs to be, that really has helped to build that team and that cohesive group. SEED, we are moving along with SEED. It is still a little frustrating. I think after I go, Teresa's just going to have you approve another little piece. It's very small, but it had to be approved by you before June 30th. But all of the teachers are being evaluated with the new teacher evaluation program. As always, Kathy Colella is done first. So that was on my desk today, and everybody else is still trying to work Bloomboard. But it is happening, and that's because the staff, the administrators, the teachers, everybody has come together to make it work. It's been a difficult journey, believe me. The transition to a digital learning environment, which is Board Goal 2, is really, for where we started 2 years ago to now, is very, very impressive. Karen and Vic and Sheila and Maureen, Regina, and Karen have done a great job with just the infrastructure, the technology, and making sure that everything works in the schools. Then when you think about the tech champions who are now working with teachers to implement technology in the classroom, it's really very impressive. We have, when you think about the teacher side, Power School, grading, the new SBAC, all of those things have been really seamless, but have had a lot of work in the background. The new teacher evaluation and Bloomboard is all done online. That's been difficult, but we've made it happen. There have been some great offerings at the high school, in school and after school, with robotics, with the 3D printer, with MakerBot, and all of these things. The digital video club, our students have gone to compete on the weekends and after school in different technology competitions. And today I saw, what's her name, Kate? 5th grade teacher at...
Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie Snowden, thank you. Carrie said to me, because I said to her, can you just tell me a couple of things about what have made this year special? And she said the biggest thing that has an impact on our kids are the Chromebooks. She says the Chromebooks have changed education in the classroom. They've allowed kids to work together and to go and delve deeply and to do research. It's allowed them to be able to take notes and start to build some portfolios of work. It has allowed them to see things from different perspectives. It's allowed them to learn how to use technology for mathematics and science. So we really have done a lot of work, and the kids have taken the Chromebooks and used them in a responsible way. She doesn't have any problems. It's been a wonderful, wonderful transition. So we're very, very happy about that. And that really comes from also the tech champions who have done an excellent job in the schools, working with teachers, helping them to prepare engaging lessons. Google Apps is a big part of that. You'll see that from teachers sharing different apps that they're using. Of course, you saw last time you were here, the video editing lab and the television studio, so we're very excited about that. World Language is starting to use smart boards as well as everybody else. You just saw everything with school counseling. Todd and his group have done an excellent job to really make the counseling viable and visible to parents, to students. We're still doing more, but what's so impressive to me is that not only is he focusing on those kids who know they want to go to college and want to either go to a 2-year or a 4-year, he's really putting a lot of effort into those students who don't know what they want to do. And it's very important to us as a system that all students have a plan when they leave. So I'm very excited about that. I hear that, and that really warms my heart. I think communication, I think people take for granted a little bit how we communicate now, but the Region in Review gets raves everywhere I go from people who talk about it. There's so many things in there that talk about how wonderful our schools are. People really like the flip doc formula for them now, so that's really helpful. I did a Google Hangout, but the kids do Google Hangouts. The kids in the elementary schools are Skyping with each other and working together across the grades with their Chromebooks. So it's really very exciting. Lots going on with public relations, and that will continue. We developed the board handbook. That is done. The referendum is done for the first part. Now we have another part tomorrow, so I'm hoping that we get the vote out and we can move on that. Number 10, the budget this year was negative 0.2%, which is a good budget, but it was good while it was even in the positives, I think. We're trying with looking at our system, pre-K to 12, using staff efficiently and effectively, keeping costs down, making sure that we're buying things that we need, prioritizing. We're working on a deferred program purchases for the end of the school year. And we did the teacher negotiations this year, and we have nurse negotiations again tomorrow night. So that's
it?
Yes, that's it. That is it.
All right, well, we have superintendent's end of year evaluation and executive session tonight, but are there any questions for the superintendent now? Kelly?
One big change here, during the past year was the integration of the upper and the lower school. And I wondered if that's going to be a goal to work more with that going forward, how you envision that. The one complaint I've heard that seems to irritate parents is that they feel that sometimes that vision of letting kids stream up, if they're able to, isn't happening. Parents had hopes that if their kid was advanced in foreign language or math in, let's say, 8th grade, that they could move into a 9th grade class. And there's still that wall there, apparently. Is that wall coming down? Is there going to be a little more freedom of movement forward? Take advantage for those?
Yes. The wall has come down a little bit. It hasn't come down 100% yet because of the Common Core state standards. Because what the Common Core tells you is that if kids are ready to move on because they've mastered a grade, as a teacher and as an educator, you're supposed to go deeper. And you're supposed to challenge them more and provide higher level of rigor, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a different mindset that there used to be where, oh, my child is, a 7th grade math, I want them in 9th grade math. So we're trying to find that balance, and I think once the curriculum is done, we'll have a better handle on that. Certainly you will see it, we've done it in the languages, we've done it where it's appropriate. But it's more appropriate for us as a school system to make the Common Core standards, which are very rigorous, really meet the needs of the kids in those grades. Because if all of our kids, or we have kids who are meeting all those needs, then we're not doing something right in the classroom. So we're definitely working on it. And yes, we are absolutely working 6-12. Kim and Lori and I work and talk about it all the time with Teresa, how we can make sure that we have vertical alignment of what goes on in the classes, making sure that we're meeting the needs, the emotional and social needs of the middle school kids as opposed to the high school kids, making sure that our administrative team concentrates on both groups so that no one feels that we're missing out on one group or the other. So it definitely is part of my goals moving forward.
Anyone else? Greg?
Yeah, Pat, if I could follow on that question, though. I hope that you're on the lookout and your building leaders are on the lookout for aspects of the Common Core, in particular this one, to turn out to be a great idea in theory, but in practice it doesn't work. If the issue is we've got kids in classes that are really ready for a higher level, and we're saying, well, no, we're going to keep slogging away until we have gotten our teachers to challenge it. It may be that just in the practice of a 22-student class or whatever number of students are in a given class, that may or may not be feasible, depending on the levels of the kids. And so I think we have to be prepared to jettison those aspects that don't work in favor of ones that do, if we're ever going to have the reputation in the community as a great school that you want to go to, as opposed to certain other alternatives you may have available to you, because it's so rigorous and it's so good. So I just hope that you have an open mind to that, and we're not so slavishly affecting, and I'm a supporter of the Common Core, but I don't want to be slavishly affecting anything if it's not serving the needs of the kids, because what will happen is, if you've got a kid that really is advanced in the grade level, and we expect a teacher to turn around and devote an enormous amount of time to that student, to challenge them more, and it isn't happening, they're gone. You've lost them.
Right, no, we are definitely,
Sure
we
will.
have students now in different levels of classes, and that was one of the main reasons we wanted to have a 6-12 schedule that was on the same, so that students had that opportunity to move up or down. But they're just, what I'm saying to you is there has to be balance also.
No, I understand that, but I just want to make sure that we didn't go out and buy a really good car so that we could get out and get behind it and push it instead of riding it. Okay?
We're always talking about cars. We have to find something that I'm interested in. I am not interested in cars, I'll tell you all the time.
Well, I'll tell you what, for the next week, commute to school, commute to your office by pushing your car, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Is there anyone else? Kelly?
And just one more comment on the same subject. Because education and everything in a student's life is so individually tailored and delivered into their hands now, I know of students who are studying math on their own. I wouldn't have done that in 8th grade or 9th grade, but they are. And they go to math camps in the summer because they think it's fun. So when they come back here, they might be significantly accelerated versus where they left us in June. Is there fluidity for those students as well?
There's fluidity up until a point, because what happens is, most of the time, what we started doing this year in math, I'll talk about math, is the teachers made recommendations for the students to move up to their next math class. In the past, that wasn't done. In the past, it was done, you had 7th grade math, now you're going 8th grade math. So we have been able to move and accelerate students who need to be accelerated with teachers' input. And that's definitely something that we do. In the beginning of a school year, you give students maybe a week or two and a teacher a week or two to see, oh my gosh, this child is really misplaced. Either way. And then you make a move. You talk to the parent, you make a move. You don't do it as like the year starts to go on, like, maybe a month or two, because then what happens is you're taking them out of a class, you're putting them in another class where they've already missed 2 months of work, and then you have to maybe change their schedule, because in a small school we have so many singletons. This class may bump up against that class, so there are logistics to it also. But one of the reasons that I love virtual high school so much, and having opportunities for kids to take classes at colleges, whether it's there or here, is that you then, when you get to your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you've taken all of your requirements, you have that under your belt, now you can really explore what your passions are. And so that's really important. So it definitely happens. It happens a lot more as the students get older.
Okay, Michael?
Pat, with so many things that you're providing this past year to communicate with parents and students, you mentioned the newsletters, you mentioned Power School, all those are great. One of the questions I had for you was in terms of online program of studies, where are we at with that right now? Do we have a way, for example, if you were a freshman at Chappaq and you wanted to find out what would be the suggested progression in terms of sciences at Chappaq right now? What classes would you be taking, or could you take? What if I was interested in chemistry and I wanted to find out what would be the difference between AP chemistry and
Right.
regular intro chemistry.
Right.
What would those courses be like in terms of a syllabus? I mean,
Let me answer a little bit, and then let me have Kim put her 2 cents in also. We are redoing our web page so that this way it'll be more user-friendly, and that it'll also be more attractive to maybe incoming families. So Karen is working on that, and our web page is going to go down for like a couple of weeks in July. So absolutely, I know that's possible. I don't know where we are with it right now. So Kim?
Well, actually, the program of studies, we call it the guidebook, has been online since December?
Mid-January.
Mid-January. It's been online that whole time, and I know that parents and students utilize it all the time. Perhaps the reason why you don't know is that the website is difficult to navigate. Perhaps you just haven't found it. Because I have walked parents through the treacherous road to our connections. The website right now is not intuitive, nor is it user-friendly, but it will be. So all of that information is available, and if you put that in addition to the fact that our counselors meet so often with families, more than any high school that I've been in, there's a lot of information out there that is available, and we'll continue to try to make it better and better. As far as the website goes, we know when it's closing, and I've collected a lot of information from PTO, from kids, from all the different times that people call me and say, how do you get to something? That all that information has gone to Karen Filed so that she knows the things that people have had a hard time finding.
All right, thank you. Peter?
Where did you want to go with my subject matter?
No new business.
Oh, okay.
Is there anything else? Kelly?
Yeah, quick just question on the language arts that you're working on, a new curriculum, and social studies curriculum. It says you're going to pilot it this year, and it'll be published at the end of the school year. Do you mean at the end of this school year? Or next school year?
Lori, would you like to talk to that? Speak to that?
I didn't hear the question.
The new,
Why don't you stand up?
The new curricula in English and social studies?
Yes.
It says here that it is being piloted this school year, and it will be published in its final form at the end of the school year?
Yes.
Does that mean at the end of this school year?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, we wrote it all this year. We wrote it actually unit by unit. So we wrote a unit, implemented, another unit implemented, lessons learned, et cetera, et cetera. So we piloted as the year went, wrote our framework, entered it into Atlas. So I'll clean it up over the summer, meet with the instructional leaders to make sure that my cleanup, which I sat with them every day, so I know what it has to be. And we'll clean it up, and then it'll be on Atlas for anyone to see in terms of staff. I will also share it with the Board of Ed. I cannot share Atlas in its entirety with the public because all the assessments are detailed on that document. But I intend to create what I call a curriculum framework document, or a scope and sequence in the olden days we used to call it, which will have the bulk of the information without the detailed assessments. And that
Terrific.
will be for the public.
Thank you. I just asked you to stand up so we could hear you, that's all.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
All right. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. So moving on then to item 9, old business. To consider and if appropriate, approve seed evaluation for teachers and administrators. Dr. Cosentino.
Mrs. DeBrito is just going to quickly give you the changes from last time, and we just need to consider it if appropriate vote. You've already seen this. Basically, the seed document had to be changed to add a couple little pieces. We have a committee of teachers and administrators and myself who have worked on this all year. So it is my recommendation that you will approve and move on. Go ahead, Julie.
Good evening. Back again. I think it's my third time after 2 months talking about seed. So I put together a packet for you. These changes are for the 2014-15 school year, and as Dr. Cosentino indicated, we did have our committee meet several times to discuss these potential changes, and we were ready to have you approve them. Starting with the first bullet, the state did adjust the requirements such that teachers who have more than 2 years in the district and have met the standards, meaning proficient or exemplary, that they will be evaluated formally with one formal evaluation and one review of practice every 3 years, and 3 informals and 1 review of practice all the other years. So that's different, where the current plan, the original plan was that they would be formally evaluated every single year, and it became a huge task for the administrators, and so they did adjust those. Those were flexibility options, and we did opt to change our C document. The second bullet specifically talks to student learning objectives. The original document indicated that teachers would have 2 student learning objectives. The adjustment now is for teachers to have 1 mutually agreed upon learning objective, and that they would still have 2 indicators of growth. That still being SMART goals. And what I mean by that is that they are specific, they're strategic, they're measurable, they're attainable, and aligned. They're results-oriented and time-bound. Turning the page, the state also had a committee put together, I was on this committee, to refine the rubric. Originally, they called it 6 domains, and the first domain was really just teacher preparation. They have done away with that particular domain, started right with classroom environment, student engagement, and commitment to learning. Another domain that they did away with was assessment, because it is embedded in the other domains that are here. So we now have gone from 6 to 4, and those are highlighted on page 2. Page 3, the bullet at the top, speaks to the 22.5% of the teacher's rating for student growth and development. Originally, the intent was that the state or federal assessments would count towards that 22.5%. However, the flexibility options did allow for the SBAC that's going to be assessed this coming year not to count toward that 22.5%. So we obviously did take that flexibility option as well. What teachers will have to do is show student growth through various assessments. The next bullet specifically speaks to language for evaluation-informed professional learning. We as a district had to define this and indicate what that means. So teachers are going to identify their own professional learning needs, and we want them to enhance those particular learning skills. And we are expecting that there are going to be common needs throughout some of the teachers in different disciplines, and so we want to make sure that we will provide the professional learning that they feel they would like to have. The last bullet on page 3 specifically speaks to improvement and remediation plans. We had to come up with language defining what that looks like. So we have 3 different plans here. The structured support is for any time that an administrator feels there is an area needing additional focus, that they will assist the teacher and assist the teacher to improve. The next category is special assistance. This is very specific, where there are additional resources provided to the teacher. There is a specific timeline, there are specific plans, and the expectation is that the teacher will meet those goals successfully. If that still is not happening, then we have what we call the intensive assistance, where again additional resources are provided, and the expectation is the level of urgency that the teacher will implement the changes, show improvement, and that's what we're hoping would happen if we get to that particular point. The last bullet on page 4 speaks specifically to career development and growth. We want to reward teachers who stand out, going above and beyond in their instructional practices and their collegiality. So we would like to support their desire to grow.
And we have identified here some potential focus areas that a teacher could maybe assist a peer as they are developing, maybe become a cooperating teacher, that there'll be opportunities for them to demonstrate their leadership based on exemplary work. On the last page, the last bullet there speaks to dispute resolution process. We also had to outline how we will handle a potential disagreement, a disalignment of the educator and the evaluator. Obviously, what is most important is that the evaluator and the staff member have dialogue, open dialogue about the concerns. If that does not resolve the situation, there is a possibility of seeking additional help, but the final say would be from the superintendent. So those are all the areas for the changes for 2014-15, and we are asking for you to approve that. I'll be coming back every year because you will need to approve it every year.
All right, great.
Did we approve one in the past that was more extensive than this, or did we just look at it? I don't remember.
It's all, these are just the changes. It is definitely all encompassing. I did not bring the entire document.
No, I understand, but.
No, it was approved.
Oh, yes.
So you're looking for an approval of just these changes, or you're looking for an approval of this in lieu of the old one? What are you looking for?
We are looking for approval of the entire document for 2014-15, and the only changes in that document compared to the current one are what's highlighted here.
All right, well then I'll move that we approve the seed evaluation as outlined with the changes brought to our attention tonight, the entire document with these, as modified.
Second.
All right, Michael, second. Is there any discussion?
Did you get that?
No. Good. Alan?
And you said that you were required to make these changes. Obviously, we're approving them. Those who required this of you, do they have to approve them too?
They will.
Okay, I just wondered, you know, they're probably going to be satisfied with this,
Yes.
but I just wondered what the
Yes.
process is. Do they just say, come up with something?
No, they
Or-
actually give us
Okay.
a stamp of approval, or say go back and change something.
Well, I'm satisfied for 1 year, and then we'll see where they are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anything further? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the seat evaluation for teachers and administrators as presented to us by Mr. Brito tonight, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, it's approved. Thank you very much, Teresa. All right, moving on to new business. 10.1, consider it appropriate to cover $82,000 for pianos with a vendor to be determined. I've had a discussion with this, with Greg Cava. Greg has been involved in the school's music program. He's a pianist of some talent. So I'd like to have Greg make a presentation to us, or just give us his point of view on this, and then we can discuss it. Greg?
Yeah, I was originally approached about this because the music department saw an opportunity to acquire some pianos this year. And just so you know what we've got, we basically have three pianos in the school that I'm aware of.
When you say, you're talking about this building?
This building. We have a piano that has been used in practice rooms that has missing keys and otherwise doesn't work properly. It's a spinet piano. It's really just been sort of moved around the practice rooms. It's an old one. I don't think it was old when it got here. I don't think it was ever purchased by the district. It was donated. We have the primary instructional piano is a Steinway brand that is located, and I believe it's an M, which is a 6 foot or thereabout piano, 5'10" maybe, piano that's located in the chorus room. This piano is in severe disrepair. It has 4 major cracks that we know of in the soundboard, which is the board that actually distributes the sound of the piano. And it's otherwise in very bad need of being completely rebuilt. It's basically shot. We also have the piano that's used in the auditorium. It's a Yamaha upright. And aside from the fact that it's an upright piano in an auditorium, which is probably not appropriate due to the size of the auditorium and what it has to be used for, it is also in severe disrepair. It is not used for anything it's occasionally used for concerts, but it's rarely used for anything important. When I say important, I mean for something where you really want to use it. It's used because it's there, but it's not. It has keys that don't work. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's the condition of our musical instruments, the pianos, is an embarrassment. Why are they important? They're important because a piano is used to lead the chorus. It's used, these pianos were used in the past. They're no longer because they don't work. In relation to the other musical events we have here, whether it be the talent show where students play them, whether it be the musicals where usually it's a hired person plays them. So they're very important. They're also used as a teaching tool, and they're also played by students. We looked at the possibility, at least the music department looked at the possibility of replacing these with proper instruments for the building. And that led to going out and looking at what pianos cost and what are the appropriate instruments. And I think that they've identified the need for probably 2 pianos to replace the existing pianos that are here. And we've looked at new pianos, we've looked at rebuilt pianos. I just want to briefly explain that a rebuilt piano is not a used piano. There are used pianos. A rebuilt piano is a piano that has saved the basic box or piece of furniture that's the piano, the harp that's in it, a few pieces that connect things, the legs, and more or less everything else is new from the ground up. It's rebuilt. In some cases, with a talented rebuilder, they're built better than the new piano was. But you're typically looking at rebuilt pianos where the original piano was built anywhere from 60 to 125 years ago. And that's only quality pianos are rebuilt because the cost is staggering. So you're not going to rebuild a cheap piano. You're going to rebuild a quality piano, simply because of what the cost that's involved in rebuilding it. But the bottom line is pianos are expensive. The reason they're expensive is there used to be a lot of manufacturers. At one point there were 12,500 piano brands available to people in the world, primarily, most of them available in the United States. There are now very few, and there's only one that's made in the United States, and that's Steinway & Sons in New York. All of the other American brands have been sold to foreign companies and are made and are offshored. So you basically have to approach this from the standpoint of what instrument do you need in terms of whether you need a grand piano or a different type of piano. How large do you need it? How large can you accommodate? What's too large? What's too small? Once you decide on the proper piano for the space, then the next thing you want to decide on is what kind of piano and why do you need a good piano versus a bad piano. The problem today is that there are outstanding pianos, there are really good pianos, and there are marginal to poor pianos. There's very, very little middle ground. And therein lies the essential problem. At least that's what's been discovered. Now, I spoke with the people in the music department. Beth Harvison and I actually accompanied her to look at some pianos because she was going to look at rebuilt pianos. Why rebuilt pianos? Because they're less expensive than new. What do pianos cost? Well, that's the hard part to divine. The most expensive pianos are in the range of $200,000. Those are not the pianos we're looking at, nor would we. We are not looking at a Bosendorf or Imperial Grand with 100 keys. They have one with 100 keys, more than the typical 88. It's an entire extra octave. That's a $250,000 piano, and we're not in that market. There are a lot of pianos that are manufactured in Asia. And we've looked at them, and there are some issues with some of the brands. And so we've discovered that the less expensive pianos are problematic, both from the standpoint they don't meet the needs of the music department, but also the tendency of them is that they don't have the durability, and they can frequently cost more to maintain. In our last meeting, Valerie suggested that we look at a piano made by Steinway called the Boston. And I went so far as to go to Westport and actually play about a dozen of them. Because they do have the Steinway dealer in Westport. What I discovered through research, and it's a good thing I did it before I went, is that they are not made by Steinway, nor are they made in the United States and Steinway's New York manufacturer. They're actually made by Kawai Piano Company in Japan. And after the Steinway guy finished, he led me to believe that they would be problematic for use in a performance space, a performance environment, and for heavy use, simply because the action on those pianos compared to the action that Steinway puts in their pianos make the Steinway pianos much more durable and less expensive to maintain over time. That you could actually spend a good deal more money maintaining a piano with an inferior design to it. So we have to look both at durability and the level of action these things get in terms of trying to determine which is the one that's going to work for us. Now, what I believe and would like to ask the board to propose, to do, is not to go out and make a decision on what pianos ought to be purchased. Frankly, the music department ought to look at that and make that decision. But I think what the board ought to do is encumber a sufficient amount of money that the music department can make a decision on whether they should purchase a very fine instrument for the performance space or for the classroom, and how they ought to allocate. We ought to give them a number within which they can work, and they can figure out how to acquire 2 pianos within that number. And I think that's probably the appropriate way to do it. The number we came up with was a number that would permit several configurations of pianos based on estimates that were obtained from a rebuilt piano company. And just to get an idea of the magnitude of rebuilt versus new, a new Steinway B piano costs about $92,000, whereas a rebuilt one costs somewhere in the 70s. So that they're not a lot less. But they are less. They're significantly less. In other words, the difference in price allows you to buy another one. The other thing with the piano rebuild system is that usually you can get the rebuilder to offer you a substantial amount of money for the piano that you have. And although the Yamaha is not going to bring anything in that market, nor is the one in the practice room, the Steinway Grand that we have, even though it's in somewhat dilapidated condition, is a piano that's worthy of being rebuilt, and it would probably be worth a significant amount of money to the district in order to, and it would reduce the cost that we would ultimately pay for these instruments, no matter what type of piano we bought. The problem is you can't just trade it in unless you replace both of them. In other words, if you traded it for the one, if all you did was replace the piano in the teaching space, in the chorus room, you could trade that one for that. But if you traded that one in and then didn't replace the one in the chorus room, you got a problem. So you'd have to do it. The other problem we've got is once we place a piano, the proper place for it is on the stage, not down below where we've kept the piano for years. Because you really want it on the stage where it actually resonates and sounds and is part of the performance. Once you put it on that stage, you're going to keep it on that stage. You're not going to be rolling it on and off the stage. It's going to stay there. And part of the process of acquiring this, we will also be, among other things, constructing what we're technically calling a garage for it, which is a place where it can be placed that is enclosed in a manner that it doesn't get damaged. And that it also creates an opportunity for additional storage space backstage in the process, better use of the storage space that's back there. So not an expensive process, but obviously a couple of $1,000s in construction to create a wooden garage for this thing so that it can be put in there. It also has to be properly maintained. But what the music department really wants is they want a proper piano on the stage, and that means it's a grand piano. Normally on a stage you would put a 9-foot grand, that's what they were created for, but we don't have the space for it, nor are we interested in spending the money that it costs to acquire one. So we're probably going to go with nothing larger than 6'10", which is an appropriate size, maybe slightly smaller than that, depending on what we find and what the options are, what they find and if they're happy with it. But that's sort of where it is. Now, some people have questioned, well, what brands are you looking for? Well, there aren't a lot of opportunities here. There aren't a lot of choices. There are out there are a fair number of Steinways that have been rebuilt, primarily because it's a durable piano that's properly constructed. There are a few Mason and Hamlins that are not in bad condition, that are good pianos. There are some Baldwin pianos that are decent pianos that are out there, but there isn't a whole lot else that could be had on a rebuilt basis. And I think if we go new, we're going to pay an awful lot of money for having a new piano that's not necessary if we get a proper rebuilt piano. The other option is to simply buy very inexpensive pianos. And it's probably not a good option because they're not going to be durable, number one, they're not going to sound very good. And the other thing about pianos you have to understand is not only how they sound, because someone might hear the one in the theater and think it sounds perfectly good, but for anyone that knows, it doesn't. But the second issue is the playability of them is important, because when we have students play an instrument, we want them to play an instrument that, number one, doesn't have keys that stick, number two, is not a burden to play, it's not hard to play because the action on it is poor and cheap or inexpensive. And so that's one of the reasons that leads you to looking at a better piano. Finally, let me put the piano in context. We're talking about $82,000 to acquire two pianos. We spent $125,000 on top of donated money to put two playgrounds at the elementary schools. We spent what I thought was $200,000 on the track, but I'm assured that by the time you take into consideration all of the infrastructure and everything, the number is closer to several $100,000 more than that. We are proposing to spend in this referendum tomorrow, if it's approved, $230,000 merely to fix our locker rooms so people don't laugh at them when they come in. That's been the description of why we need to do something with it, because they're in such horrible shape. Here you're talking about probably the primary instructional instrument, piece of instructional equipment for the music department that's used in connection with the chorus, that's used in connection with the band, that's used in connection with the other musical events that involve student ensembles and other things. And so it does make some sense to have decent instruments that fall within the realm of what's appropriate. I know one person said, well, why are you even considering Steinway pianos? Well, only because they're what's out there in the rebuild market that's good and durable and properly constructed, and they actually perform at the level you want to perform at. I asked the fellow at the music store, where did he get these pianos that he's got to rebuild? Most of them came out of public schools. Most of the Steinways came out of public schools, some of them in Hartford and other towns. And they simply got to the point where they were beyond playing any longer, and they had been used for probably 60, 70, some of them 80, 90 years. And they were just not in good condition, and so they let them go and sold them for their rebuild values to this guy, who was then rebuilt them into beautiful instruments that function again today and function beautifully. I have played all of the instruments except one that they're looking at and considering. And I think there's some fine instruments out there at prices that are well below what they would normally sell for if we were going to go out and buy new ones from the store. Last thing I'll leave you with, and I'll shut up for a minute. Pianos have value if they're good instruments. They don't if they don't. And one of the reasons why we have an instrument here that has value, that's worthwhile, that can be resold, is simply because it was a good instrument to begin with. And so there is some value, not just in the fact that you're going to be training the kids, doing something that makes this come alive for them, but because there's some intrinsic value in a proper instrument. And whether it be a Steinway, Mason, Hamlin, some of the balls. And if you have any further questions or specific questions about instruments, I can answer a number of them because I know a little bit about these. So some of you may know I'm the organist and choir director at Christ Church in Roxbury in my other life. And I have played music professionally for all of my adult life and most of a bit of my life prior to that in a variety of contexts. So.
The $82,000 figure that's on the agenda, from what I understand, you have the store is in West Hartford, this piano store?
We looked at, we looked at a rebuilder in West Hartford.
All right,
to
so but the
show us-
82,000 would cover a 6'9" grand that you think is a good instrument, and what else?
610 grand.
610.
And it would cover another smaller grand or possibly an upright piano, or it might cover a lesser grand than one of the ones we were looking at. And maybe it would cover 2 grand pianos, so you'd end up with a smaller one in the choral room and a larger one for the stage, which would be appropriate to the situation. We also looked at upright pianos as well. The only problem is they're really not designed for a stage, and they're marginal in the choral classroom environment. Probably very marginal for that environment.
Susan?
I mean, considering encumbering $82,000, we don't know if that's going to essentially meet the needs of the choral department, of the music department. Why don't they just go out and figure out what pianos are going to meet their current needs to replace the pianos that we currently have, and then come to the board to say, these are the pianos, this is what we can get for the other one, and have it be sort of hooked up with that. Because no one is saying,
that's a good question.
no one would be against getting the pianos or buying the pianos, but to put aside money for something that, just to put money aside, it doesn't make sense. They may need a little more, they may need a little less if we can sell the other one, or have the other one be a rebuild.
Yeah, I
I'm not sure
can
why we're dealing
answer
with
that question.
at
And that's a very
9
good
o'clock
question.
tonight.
It's a very good question, and I can answer that question. The primary reason is because we have funds that if we do not encumber them for this project, they're just simply going to be gone. It's a use or lose situation. They're surplus funds that are left over this year, and if we encumber them, then we can use them for school purposes. If we don't, they'll simply be returned at this point to the towns. And we'll miss an opportunity to fund something that we're in bad need of. And so the idea was, I thought we were going at a rate, because of the fact that the fiscal year ends June 30th, we were going at a rate that was too fast, and we needed to encumber the money now, and then explore a few more options and opportunities to make sure that the music department had exactly what they needed. You're right. But I don't think we know based on the piano quotes that we've received that we can acquire 2 pianos that will serve the needs of the music department for $82,000. We might be able to do it for less. And that's net of the trade-in of the piano.
And you have the input from someone from the music department who teaches okay.
Yep. Yeah. We have two. We have the chairman of the department, Ms. Molly, and also Beth Harbison, who's the teacher who uses the piano more than anyone in her day-to-day class, because she's the director, the choral director. So yes, they're the ones that, this was their original thing, and I got involved in it only because I wanted to at least go out and understand what they were looking at, because I knew that if you heard that there was a need for a piano, you might be helpful to have someone that's at least familiar with how they work, what they are, how they're built, and what the parts are and what the issues are. So and plus I've bought pianos and sold pianos over the years, grands and uprights, so I was somewhat familiar with it.
Michael?
It sounds like this is something that we need to act on fairly quickly because of the timetable that you just explained. However, I'm thinking that this might provide an opportunity for you and maybe some of the educators in the music department to come up with a little bit of a long-term approach to some of the significant capital needs. In other words, you might say our primary focus right now, because of the need, is for the performance space in the auditorium, but we would love to have 2 additional pianos at a cost of X. And I'm just wondering, last week you mentioned that we had a wonderful anonymous donor who was going to contribute a significant amount of money to Chippewa for a turf field. I would have to think that in these 3 towns there might be somebody who's interested in funding a specific item like that. I know that's not something you can do right this minute. I think that might be a conversation that you need to have maybe over the next year even. to come up with that wish list. And that might be part of a larger wish list for the entire district in terms of capital needs. I know many districts will have these kinds of lists that are available for donors who are interested in making some kind of a contribution.
Believe me, it's something that we have considered. What I think is unfortunate, not that it's unfortunate, it's always great that there are people that are willing to donate, but sometimes, and even though we have the ASAP program that meets here, even though we once hosted, and we are scheduled within the next 8 years to host again the Berkshires.
What's that? What are you talking about? The Berkshire what?
The Berkshires is it's the regional area of this part of the state in music. And what they do is they bring the best students in those areas.
Competition.
Into, not competition so much as they bring them into a very meaningful multi-day thing where they come in, they rehearse, and they produce a concert at the end of it. It's a very high-level music thing, and our kids have participated. Generally, All-State is held in the convention center in Hartford, so the All-State won't be here. But this is sort of the regional progression to All-State. We've had a number of kids that have participated. It's a wonderful experience. And actually, at least 2 of the kids that participated, I know from the class of 2010, I believe have both just graduated from college now and are going into professional music as their career. So that's one reason why that's important to be able to do that. So we do have all these enrichment programs, but while people are very eager to donate, they can see the need for things like athletic fields because they allow us to have all kinds of sporting events for the kids in the school plus the people in the community. They see the need for the pool, especially if they swim. It's harder for a lot of people to see that need for a musical instrument because they just don't think of it. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. There are a few people in our community that have donated at that level before. And I would hope that they would be willing to do that again. But the problem is we have an absolute dire immediate need because we have one piano in the auditorium that the choral director will not use for any purpose where there's an alternative. And we have one in the classroom that I went to see that she uses every day, and frankly, I'm shocked that she's able to use it. It was a workout just to get it to sound. So,
Peter.
Well, I was involved when we spent $8,000 on the Steinway. I think it's probably the same piano.
Is that 80 years ago?
Yeah. And I was not a supporter of it at the time. But what bothers me to some degree is you have something, an automobile, a house, a roof, a car, a piano, a musical instrument, and why are these things always in disrepair? Why, even if something's old, it can be repaired and brought up. Not that we need necessarily to be against underwriting an upgrade of various aspects of the educational system, but if these things could be repaired, why aren't they repaired? Not that we don't want to step up to a better grade of instrument or whatever the case may be. So that kind of bothers me. What's to say that in 4 or 5 years you spend $40,000 a piano, $30,000 a piano, and somebody comes back and says, by the way, the piano's in disrepair. You know, that makes me think that why do I want to spend that much money, knowing from past experience and having dealt with it, that things get disrepaired, very expensive things to repurchase. So that's a problem for me. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not against upgrading various aspects of the educational system. The price when you go to the public, part of our job incurs public relations. And people see things, and while we don't always agree with them, it's a big number to sell for even if you go out and shop pianos. I think it's a tough number. I really do.
Well,
I'm not interested in going cheap either, but it's just a tough number.
You know, I understand you. Let me answer your first question first. Why is it in disrepair? First of all, the 2 pianos have been here for a while. The main reason that the Steinway is in disrepair is not from abuse. It's in disrepair from use. You know, every time you play a piano, you press a key, and the key, the action transmits that into a hammer striking a string, and in the grand piano it strikes it from underneath. Every time that felt hammer strikes the string, you've got strings that are under tens of thousands of pounds of pressure. They are taut, and they're made of, for a better word, piano wire. And when it strikes that string, it puts a momentary indentation in the hammer. After 40 years, those hammers are gouged, they're gone. The action itself, eventually, from use, because the school piano gets a lot of use, wears out. The strings are shot, they're worn out, they need to be replaced. You could send that piano in for rebuilding. It would probably take a couple of years, and you would probably spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $50,000 to have it rebuilt. At the end of the day, the reason it costs a lot of money to fix them is because they're expensive tools. They're expensive instruments. Nobody questions, the cost of a truck for the district. When we bought a $60,000 or $50,000 truck, people tend not to question that because they understand it. The other thing I think it's important to remember is we're not. We're trying to, here, if this were a car, and I'm sorry, Pat, I apologize. If this were a car situation, the question is, you want to teach the kids how to race cars. So you can go out and you can buy a Ferrari, which is your Bosendorfer piano. You can buy a Ferrari and spend a couple or $300,000 on it, and boy, they'll get a great racing car that handles well and does the job. You could also buy I don't know, some type of $20,000 passenger car. Still a car, but it won't teach them much about racing because at the speeds they need to be traveling, it's going to be sliding all over the track because it can't handle it. So what I think the music department suggests is that what you do is you go out and buy a car that is capable of racing. It might be a it might not be a $20,000 car. It certainly doesn't have to be a $250,000 car, but it might be a $40,000 or $50,000 car or a $30,000 car. But the point is, it's a car that's designed to the tolerances of the track. Same thing here. You're looking for an instrument that's designed to the tolerances, number one, that's durable enough so it doesn't fall apart, which is the problem with the Yamaha. It simply wasn't durable enough. It was the wrong kind of piano for what it got used, and the thing got dragged all over the school building, which is another problem. And the disrepair in that is primarily from dragging it around and from just the fact that it's sitting out there all the time and it's getting used and played.
Okay.
So in any event, that's the reason why they're in disrepair. It's from use and because the fact that they're 30 and 40 years old and they've had a lot of use. As far as your other question is concerned, it's a hard sell. You have to understand that the cheap end of this business for an upright is probably $15,000 to $20,000. For a grand, probably $20,000 to $29,000. And that's at your cheap end of the scale. So, the problem is these things are bloody well expensive. Yeah, it's a hard sell, but it wasn't a hard sell for the track, it's not a hard sell for that room, and it's not a hard sell for other physical improvements and things like trucks.
May I respond?
Yes, Peter.
I know other board members want to speak on the issue, but I think where Mike Sinatra was going was a worthy place to go. We have so much talent in these three towns in the field of music. I mean, real talent, professional talent. I would certainly like to see us try and garner some money from those people to underwrite an expense of this amount before we just plunk $82,000 down to buy the instruments. That's how I feel.
Michelle.
I have a couple of comments for the conversation, but I thought maybe I should make a motion. Are we moving?
It's up to you.
I mean,
if you're ready for it.
Were you expecting a motion tonight on this?
Oh, absolutely,
Do you want us to
yes.
vote? Okay, so I'd like to move that we approve encumbering $82,000 for pianos with a vendor to be determined.
Is there a second?
Second.
I moved and seconded. Michelle.
Okay, so just a couple of quick comments. I'm not going to get into a lot about pianos, except for that, Peter, I think one thing you mentioned, it was very interesting to me because we didn't really know how long that Steinway has been there. And if we paid $8,000 for it, then that actually shows Greg's point in this is an investment in something of value, because I believe that we're getting almost that for the trade-in. So
More.
we're getting more than that on the trade-in. So actually it was a good investment back then. And hopefully if we buy good ones now, they will also be a good investment that we could then trade in 25 years from now to be rebuilt for the next set of pianos we need. So I think that's a really interesting piece of information you shared there. The other thing that I wanted to point out, two more things. One, I agree with the soliciting donations, and I know that the Chappaq Friends of Music has been looking for people in our community to support the music program. So I don't want to lose this opportunity to wait for a donor to appear.
Okay.
I don't know. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
No, I was just, they were talking, I didn't.
Sorry.
And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is that I understand what you're saying about a hard sell, but, which is why the music department has not been able to ask for pianos through the operating budget, because it is difficult to look at numbers that large in the operating budget. But what we're looking at is our unexpended funds that are there because the price of oil didn't go through the roof, or because Bob was able to renegotiate some health insurance, or other various means of saving money. So this is money that was already approved for the schools and would be returned back to the towns if it's not spent. So it's not going into the operating to be looked at as comparing it towards teacher salaries or something. All we can do with this money is purchase things that we were not able to fund in the original budget. We can't fund teaching positions or other things with the unexpended funds of the fiscal year. So I think it's a perfect time to buy something that the music department has needed for a very long time, but has not been able to put into the operating budget because pianos are very expensive, and it's politically difficult to put that into the operating budget.
Kelly?
Yeah, I always told that I'm really in favor of providing our music department with whatever they might need, and pianos are costly, I understand that. I did expect to see these presentations, however, from our music department people, and was hoping for that. I'm not as comfortable as I might like to be with a board member being involved in a major purchase, negotiation, or excursion because of any kind of implied propriety or discounts, rebates, etc., favoritism. I think it should be the professional staff that continues on with the process. And again, if we can do as Mike suggested and reach out to the community, make our needs known, we may find that there's a musician who's about to replace his piano. You never know. And we do have quite a number of artists in this area. So just maybe we should consider looking at that, even if we encumber this money.
Sure.
Yeah, we had talked about this, and I think one of the things that was said, we had a meeting over this. One of the things that was said, which I thought was very important, was there is a great need for a great many different things in the music department, and certainly there's a great need for functional pianos that have attractive sounds both for listeners and for players. And certainly this is a wonderful opportunity to use surplus funds for something we can use surplus funds for. We can't suddenly hire somebody, as Michelle said, because we have some extra funds lying around, but we can make capital or other kind of purchases. My concern is making sure we stretch our money. I was going to say get our money's worth, and certainly a rebuilt 100-year-old Steinway is getting our money's worth, obviously. So I don't want to say that, but I want to make sure that we are stretching our money to benefit the music department as much as possible. When we talk about the track or other things that we've expended money on, that's been, sometimes it's low bid, but that's the quality of a track. But we probably could have spent twice as much on it if we wanted to. Or I forget what the other example was of something that we've spent our money on recently. playground equipment. That was what was suited for the area and the classes that size. But we obviously could have spent 3 times as much. So I appreciate that we don't want to buy a piece of junk that's not going to last long, that's not going to be to serve its purpose, not only in terms of durability, but in terms of aesthetics. But I do feel that there is a way that we can spread this out further. This is not the entire amount that we're working on from the music department. It's simply, as we're talking about it now, for the pianos. But I think that since we really could use 3 good pianos, we should be able to, I would hope, stipulate that we encumber this money and for the use of purchasing 3 pianos, which means we wouldn't be buying one awesome piano for the stage, which, as wonderful as that would be for our performances and for any visiting musicians who might come, or for the Berkshires, it really would be getting the least amount of use. So there should be a trade-off there. For the class and the practice pianos, even if they are not ever deemed or designed to be spectacular instruments, they're the ones that are really going to be getting the use. So I do appreciate those need to be durable, but they also are the ones that are going to be put to work more than a showpiece that's going to be hopefully locked up and cared for on a stage or backstage that's protected. So and I also understand that Steinway is the top of the line, and that's why you get what you pay for. But there are other good pianos out there that aren't as expensive and that are not, we don't have Steinway and then a whole bunch of junk. There is a strata here for which we could find either another rebuilt piano. Mason Hamlins are made in America. Charles Walters are made in America. If we have to, we're looking for American made. There are Yamahas that are rebuilt. There are public institutions around Connecticut that buy Yamahas for their students. And there are jazz clubs all through New York City that have Yamahas in them. So we're not talking about, those Japanese pianos. They really are quality instruments. And perhaps for our budget at the moment, so that we can stretch it a little further, I would suggest that I wouldn't want to deprive the music department of this $82,000, but I would like to, if we could, maybe I should make an amendment to the motion, to amend the motion that would be towards 3 pianos, and so that we wouldn't be in the situation of spending $70,000 for one and 12 for another. Should I formally make that amendment?
If that's your intention.
I'd like to amend the motion that the amount to be encumbered covers 3 pianos for the use of the music department.
Second.
So now we're talking about an amended. Jen?
Well, I was at that meeting as well, and I think that the $82,000 was really left, and correct me if I'm wrong, up to the discretion of the music teachers whether they buy 2 pianos with that money as opposed to just buying 1. And I like Michael's idea too about having that list. So for me, the donation or a donor could be for the 3rd piano, which is kind of what I was thinking. So that having the $82,000 earmarked for 2 pianos and then looking for somebody for the 3rd is what I was hoping.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't think it makes a lot of sense for moving and trying to get them to put the music department in a position where they haven't really looked at or solicited any numbers for 3 pianos. They've asked for 2. They have a need for 2. Would they like to have one everywhere they could put one? Sure, but they've asked for 2 pianos. They believe that they can get 2 for $82,000 or less. They're not married to a Steinway. They may get it. They've looked at a Mason Hamlin. Look, let me just clarify my position here. I didn't select some person to go look at pianos. The music department selected a rebuilder to go look at their workshop. I simply tagged along so that I could at least say that I looked at what they saw and what they were looking at was a decent instrument that would be, that I could feel comfortable about. That's entirely my involvement. I was asked to explain it because I know something about pianos that I've been involved in. I think they should get a good piano. Should it be a Steinway? It might not be. It might be. There's a wonderful Mason Hamlin that they looked at. There are some other pianos that they haven't looked at, but that have been suggested. And there are other possibilities. As far as Yamahas are concerned, they make a very fine piano. The problem is that there are not very many of them on the rebuild market. So you're talking about probably buying one new, or if you buy a used piano, the problem is then you have to have it rebuilt if it's had a lot of use. And therein lies the problem. And I think the reason why they're not on the rebuild market might be either because there aren't a lot of them that are old enough that are available, or they flat out don't lend themselves to the proper money proposition to be rebuilt, either because they can't get enough for them rebuilt or whatever. I don't know why. I haven't asked that question. You could ask it. But you know, the reason we looked at rebuild is a substantial reduction in price, but for the same or better quality of a new piano. And that was the reason why we looked in that direction, was because it would save us some money and be a good thing. As to whether that's the right way to go, I don't know. And I have no relationship with this rebuilder, and I didn't even select them. I was selected by the music department. But I think that the guy had some very fine pianos that could be a good addition to the school, that's all.
All right. I must say that I was struck sitting at the graduation exercise on Saturday morning. The salutatorian, Dana Walker, spoke, and a very poised young lady, and she spoke about the impact that music has had on her high school career. She's obviously a very successful student, and it really struck me. I knew that this subject was on the agenda, that it is a huge part of our school, and there's a lot of students who are affected by our music department. And in the years that I've been on the board, we've paid very little attention to the music department. As far as we have been buying instruments, stringed instruments, slowly over time, but these pianos, as I've come to understand, are the backbone of the system. And I think it's time that we do this. I'm not in favor of Alan's amendment because I don't know, and I'm not prepared to limit them, to require them to buy 3 with this amount of money. I'd be in favor of the original motion, let them see what they can come back with. But I think it's time. I don't have a problem with this, but I will vote against Alan's amendment.
Well, I withdraw it. If just, what is the original motion? Because the original motion in our agenda says pianos, and then Greg was talking about 2 pianos. So I was just, what was your motion?
I just read pianos. I read what was in this.
The motion is pianos, and so it would be up to the department. But it's my understanding that listening to Greg, hold on, please. From listening to Greg, that they had seen 2 pianos that they could get with a trade-in that were quality instruments that would serve the department well for that price. So I think that was the thought, but they're not married to it. It would involve further exploration by the department.
Right.
So, you know.
I would just like to say that if, I appreciate, a 98-year-old rebuilt Steinway is a magnificent instrument. But we don't even have to think about rebuilding a Yamaha. You get a brand new Yamaha, 6'7" for $55,000. Not that we necessarily want to spend that, but you can also get one, a different model for 6'3" for $45,000. And those are negotiable. Steinway doesn't negotiate. I'm certainly not talking about buying a brand new Steinway. But we're talking about rebuild. Yes, you may not find the same kind of rebuilding in Yamahas, but you could actually buy a new one. And that's what I'm saying, is you could buy 2 new ones and a rebuilt upright for a practice room. Then you have your 3. So I don't want to dictate to the music department, but I want to encourage us to look towards the highest value for the money, despite the attractiveness of.
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
I
Hold
agree
on,
with
please.
that. I agree.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but your motion requires them to buy 3 pianos. So that's why I'm going to vote. All right, is there anything further on Kelly?
Yeah, just another suggestion, and again, I really wish we had the music department here to speak to us, answer our questions, and clarify what they'd like and how much we can help them. I would wish they were here. But the other suggestion I'd like to make in line with Mike's suggestion is that I know individuals who've received some beautiful pianos from colleges who have practice rooms full of pianos, and they decide they're going to replace them all, and they sell them to the public. And they're in excellent condition, at incredible value, and just avenues like that you might want to look at.
I just want to say for a second, I looked into that because I remember that too. It turns out that's a cyclical thing, and unfortunately, none of the colleges around here are doing that this year. And so we do need to move faster than that, but I totally know what you mean.
I assume that if the motion passes in some form, that they're not wedded to anything, that they'll explore these options to see if this is a maximum that can be spent. If they could do it for less, if they could find a donation, if all these things, I'm sure that they, as Greg has said, there's no objection to maximizing our efforts. All right, there's a motion on the floor. The motion is to encumber $82,000 for the purchase of 3 pianos for the vendor to be determined.
No, right,
That's the amended motion.
That's the amended motion. And I just
Yes,
want to say, and I don't feel that, I feel that paves the way to figure out how to afford 3 pianos for that much, whether there's a gift for the difference of a piano or some other method, as opposed to the situation which I hope wouldn't happen of having one $76,000 piano and one $6,000 piano. That concerns me.
Okay, Greg?
My concern with the 3 number is, one of the reason why I wanted to see the money encumbered rather than just simply come in with a proposal to buy piano X and piano Y is because I think that because of the time that we've got and the fact this has to be decided before the end of the fiscal year, that they had an opportunity to expand, to look at one possibility, namely these rebuilt pianos at a location, and that they haven't had a chance to go around and look at some of the other options like the new Yamahas that you talked about. And rather than tell the music department they need to figure out how to buy 3 pianos for $82,000, what we should do is encumber the $82,000, let them go out and see how many pianos they can get. And if they go out and find a $50,000 piano, and that frees up $30,000 for 2, or maybe they decide that they have one $30,000 one that they love, or $20,000 one that they love, fine. But I think that rather than set a number, we should simply encumber the money, let the music department figure out what they want and decide what's the appropriate proposal, rather than come in, because they had limited options, because they had limited time to study this. And that was the reason why I got involved and wanted to see the money encumbered rather than going out and saying, let's come in with this one. It's just that they've got some potentially wonderful instruments that they're looking at, but they're not married to those. They just need more time to come in with a proper proposal, and that's why I don't think it's appropriate for us to say buy 3. They may not be able to get 3 for that price of the type of all the mix that they want, but they might be able to come in with a good proposal, and that's what I think is the way to do it, is to give them the summer to really explore this.
Peter?
I would just like to ask Alan to remove his motion. I don't think the motion's going anywhere. I think it's a wasted motion. Either vote up or down. Either we think like Mike Sinatra was thinking, or you go ahead and you appropriate the money. However it will be spent, I think those who are supporting this would have the confidence that the staff knows what it's doing, that's going to purchase the instruments. They know how the board feels, the board knows the issue. I don't think your motion really is going anywhere. It doesn't sound right. It just doesn't.
I appreciate that, but I just feel that when you have a budget for something, and the people who approve the money for something stipulate how far the money is to be spread. You could, say to a department, here's your budget for teacher salaries. We had this one teacher who's so good, we hired one teacher, as opposed to the 6 you're supposed to hire. And that doesn't happen, obviously. This is completely hypothetical and hyperbolic. But the idea is that you stipulate how you want the money to be spent, so that you don't come back with, well, we have one brand new piano and now we need 2 more. That's what I'm saying. But I will, for the sake of argument and for the sake of the respect of the music department to make the best possible decision, I will remove my amendment.
Do you remove your second, Kelly?
Yes.
All right, so we're back. Thank you. We're back to the original motion, which is encumber $82,000 for pianos with a vendor to be determined. I know that the sentiments of the board, if this passes, would be relayed to the music department. Is there anything further? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. opposed, raise your hand. Any abstain, raise your hand.
Motion passed.
What's the count?
9 in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. The motion passes. I expect we'll hear something back. Quite frankly, I do agree with Kelly that it would have been nice to have somebody here from the music department, but I'm sure that we will.
Well, we did have, if I could just interject, we had a meeting this week where everyone was invited, and there were 4 board members there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And so that's why we didn't bring them here tonight.
All right.
Without them here.
10.2, to consider if appropriate hiring a public relations firm to market the region. Dr. Cosentino.
Michelle Bora mentioned this last meeting. I have met with the selectmen since the referendum went down to try to move forward to talk about building up the region, building up Chapag, positive publicity, having people understand the importance of keeping Chapag open and making it the best school that it can be. So I have already started doing that. I have not, and I know I already have. I told the selectmen that I'm willing to go to their meetings or senior meetings or whatever they have with their communities. I already have my first meeting scheduled with Barbara Henry in July with the senior center. So we are certainly doing that. I also had a meeting with the district PTO, and we talked about also doing more things to kind of heal the region and bring people together. And we talked about possibly doing a brochure, a polished brochure that can be given to the real estates and the libraries and maybe some ads in papers and all of those things. So certainly I did say that I would put something together in-house so that there's something for the Bridgewater Fair. It's not going to be professional, it's going to be something similar to our regional review, probably, maybe just, 2 pages, a brochure or something. But I don't know if that's something that you want to consider. And so I just brought it up.
Michelle?
I would like to consider that. I have no idea how much that would cost. We would have to really think, kind of set. I think these contracts work with limit. We would have to say we want 1 brochure, we want 1 this, whatever that is. But the reason I support this, 1, because I think it needs to be done, but 2, I really would like the superintendent and her staff to be working this summer on all of the educational initiatives that they have. I know we have a lot of professional development going on, a lot of things that go into running our school system, and putting together a brochure, I think is probably best done by a professional and not taking away the time of our staff when they should be working on educational things. So that's really why I support this. But I don't know how much, maybe we could encumber some of those unspent funds and see how far it gets us. We just put out a number and see what, get as much as we can for that.
Greg?
I was going to say, I agree that I don't think it's the best use of the superintendent's time to be putting together marketing materials for the district. The problem, again, with advertising is that I know that the selectmen really want to see the issue addressed of how do we attract more people and fill up the schools, to put it in the words of one of the 3 first selectmen. The difficulty is you need to know, if you're going to have a message that's going to be effective, you need to know, number 1, who is your target audience? Number 2, what does your target audience need to know to make a decision? And 3, how do you best portray your schools to cause them to view you favorably? And that's what advertising agencies do. That's what public relations firms do. I'm not sure public relations is the right thing. I think it's more advertising than public relations or direct. They call a portion of advertising called direct. I think that is the essence of it. And for the superintendent can certainly put out a nice piece on the schools. But what I think is a better use of the superintendent's time, frankly, in terms of public relations, is to actually produce a quintessential region and review that is not just sent to the people on the email list, that is mailed to the entire district, so that people know. I think that's what the superintendent can do well, is to be able to show the people what's going on in our schools. Because, you know, one of the reasons why we struggle sometimes is people don't understand why we have technology, for example, in the elementary schools. I asked that question tonight not to embarrass anyone or I asked it because I'm having trouble articulating that when people ask me why we have that. And those kind of things, that kind of communication can really explain it. The problem is if you send it just to the ones that show interest to send an email address, you're missing the great number of people that vote and don't know why we do what we do. We have terrific things going on here. I mean, if you look at that list of colleges that our kids got into, the class of 14 got into, that's a bloody impressive list, okay? It's geographically more diverse than it's been in years, and it is a high level of schools. I mean, when you consider some of the schools that are on there. I think if more people knew that, they wouldn't be asking the question of why should we be trying to save a school that's disappearing? I mean, why should we? Because it's a very good school. Because not only that, but most of the people in this district don't know that the one class they studied on, they followed from high school into college and out of college, the class of 2003, that Chippewa had the 9th highest rate in the state of Connecticut of college graduation. Why would you ever want to close a school that's doing that well? Why would you ever want to even consider tuitioning out kids to an uncertain future in districts that may or may not produce those results when we're doing it? And I think that if we could communicate that, that's good. But if we have the superintendent try to create a brochure to market the schools to an uncertain demographic in an uncertain way with an uncertain message and an untested situation, I think she's going to spend her summer working on the wrong thing. That's my fear, and I agree with Michelle.
Al? I think actually public relations is a really good term for this because it's not just advertising. Advertising is, as you said, direct mailing or brochures or things that are sent for particular purposes on a somewhat limited basis by budget nature. But public relations has to do more with getting a message out. And what has always amazed me as long as I've been on this board is the amount of wonderful things that I know about the school system. And now, the Chippewa Valley School, a 612 school that I know about and that I'm told about. I mean, I know the good things and the bad things, and the good things far outweigh the bad things. And yet, over time, there are people who I come in contact with in the region who are not aware of all the great things. And on the communications committee, trying to do a newsletter or working on press releases, which I would think would be something that professional public relations person would know about, because I didn't have the wherewithal, nor did the administration have the wherewithal to set up I would have to go into the office and pester for stories to be able to send out the barrage of press releases that I predicted would probably be needed in order to get enough out there. Because what people really do is read the local papers. And even though we have event and we have a lot of things in the papers, if we really had an ongoing messaging system that I think a professional could advise us on how to do, because it would be, as Greg says, a real invasion of the superintendent's time, and would be perhaps a little hamstrung if one of us undertook it. But to have a real professional learn how to build and get out a message to fill that vacuum, that hearsay vacuum that I talk about sometimes, or that that vacuum of people not appreciating what we really have here. I do this very often, and I'm doing it this year. I run around with our college acceptances, and I try to get our competing areas and our competing schools' college acceptances to show people who I come in contact with, look how we're doing here. And then talk about the different programs, our STEAM program and our robotics, and so many different great things we do here that we learn about, and that we talk about in our newsletter, and that come up every once in a while when, what's going on in Chippewa these days is things as you see in the paper. But There are communities that have mediocre school systems who think of their school systems as mediocre. There are communities with excellent school systems that think of their school systems as excellent. And for some reason, I believe, many of our parents, and certainly all of us here and everyone in the room, and probably anybody who's taking the time to listen to this, knows that this is an excellent school system. But why there's anybody in the region who doesn't is, I think, a particular problem we have that I'm really glad that the superintendent wants to address in terms of hiring a professional to help us with. And that's why I would think that calling it public relations is really what we're looking for, because it is a relationship with the public we need to work on, as opposed to a sales technique.
Michael. I agree with Alan. I think this is an excellent idea. I think we should move forward on looking at a public relations professional to move the district forward. And we all know what we have as an overarching goal, which we can communicate to any agency, which is to attract, and retain students. And that's helpful because sometimes clients don't really know what they want. Before I became a teacher, I was in public relations for a number of years. And so the first step would be like, hiring an agency, and you could ask for pitches or proposals from a number of different agencies, particularly agencies that have some experience in education. I'm sure if you called the Superintendent's Association, you probably can get a list from them too in the state. And just like when we were considering building here in the district, we would get proposals from them. They would be doing their homework. They would come up with suggestions and prices for each of those suggestions. And then we would select an agency, and we would select which of those programs we felt we could afford. It works like any other kind of a program.
Kelly?
Yeah, I think the superintendent has quite a lot on her plate too, with all the changes that are coming down from Hartford, all the changes within our system that we're trying to get done. So I would also be in favor of hiring some kind of a PR person. And I agree completely with Alan that there's a lot of positive stuff that goes on here that just doesn't make it into the newspapers. And that's where these local communities, and unfortunately there are 3 or 4 or 5 local newspapers have to be approached. But that's where people get their information. I didn't know that we had a FIRST robotics team that was doing so great. I didn't know we had a FIRST robotics team. So, this is the kind of thing that when there's a championship, when these people are doing academic things that are excellent or doing research, we've heard of people doing internships with architects. Do a little story on that. What a great program we offer here. Has that kind of enhanced special ability to reach out and give our kids more than the usual day-to-day school experience. That is what people are interested in reading about. And that's different from the newspapers. So let's do that. On the other hand, I also think that I don't want to get too big on this project in terms of money or time, because we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit again, in my opinion, because we need to have a curriculum that we can articulate and explain. We need to have a plan for our schools that we can articulate and explain. And that's going to be a few months down the road. When we have our curriculum in place, our new curriculum, and we can articulate it and publicize it, I think we should go full press on that. And when we decide what we're doing with our physical plans, again, I think we should get behind that and do a full press on that. It's a little confusing in the meantime to market an educational system and not be able to say, this is what we do with our curriculum, we're working on it. So I'd say let's emphasize the highlights now and really plan for later when we have a really good strategic vision to put that out there.
All right, Peter?
I have no problems with the board wants to spend a couple of dollars on public relations. It's amazing to sit here with all of you and not recognize your problem. It isn't public relations. You have a housing problem. You don't have children in the school district because you don't have affordable housing. That's why the school buildings aren't filled. It's not because you don't have a good system. All of the school districts in this state are struggling for students, especially the northeast and northwest corner. Public relations is not going to get you students. It isn't doing it in other districts. It isn't doing it here. We have a problem with population. People are not moving into these towns. That's your problem. That's why I suggested we meet with the finance committees and the selectmen to find out what they're planning. Public relations is not a plan. It isn't going to garner you any students. You need a plan to get people into your school district. You need a jobs plan, you need a construction plan. The educational system will get the results of that. Public relations isn't going to produce anything.
All right, Greg?
So I still say we need a meeting.
I hear you, Peter. Greg?
I agree with a lot of what's been said here. However, what the reason why I suggested advertising versus public relations is I took what the selectmen were trying to accomplish was they wanted a piece that they could put out there at the Bridgewater Fair, for example, that would show people what we had, that would attract them. And when you're doing that, you're not doing public relations, you're doing advertising, you're trying to get a particular market. We need public relations too, however, because we have a problem with the perception of the people that live in our district of the quality of our education and program. So we absolutely need public relations to help with that. I agree with Peter that the problem is we don't have people, and that's the problem. However, while I have sat with the selectmen on some, at least the ones in Roxbury, on this issue, and I have participated in some of the programs related to smart growth and how we can attract people and build housing. The problem is bigger than what that alone. The one thing this board can do is solve the problems with the schools, so we can, number one, make excellent schools. Number two, we can let people know we have excellent schools. And number three, we can try to figure out what might cause some of the people that either pass this town by and go somewhere else, or some of the people that live here and send their kids to private schools or decide not to stay here, whatever. If we can get our image to match the reality, if we can keep the reality heading upward, get our image to match the reality, and then let people know, I think we might not solve the problem, but we at least will be able to say we've done everything as a Board of Education within our control to make this the best possible thing we've done.
All right, Jen?
Sorry, Jim. I think,
We have a lot to go.
I know, I'm going to be quick, but I realize that this is a statewide issue, but I think what makes us unique is we have 23% of the Region 12 students that go to private school. And so what Greg is saying is right, really, by advertising Chippewa and pulling in from our own 23% that live in our region, it may not fill the school the way you'd like it, but I think it's important, and I'm in support of having a public relations, somebody doing it, because I don't think it's the superintendent's job to do that.
Susan?
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Hire a public relations
Hold on,
firm.
well, hold on. I would just ask, let me, if I can just say mine. It seems that we have a consensus here that this is something we should do. In addition to what Peter's saying, I've asked the superintendent, she believes that she'll be able to get out, not a professionally produced, but a brochure or something along the document that she already produces in time for the Bridgewater Fair, et cetera, that'll solve an immediate request of the selectmen. I don't know that we need a motion. I think there's a consensus. We could ask the superintendent to do this, to get us a proposal and bring people in here for us to look at. If you want to make a motion to do that, I just don't know that we have any specifics that we can do. I think we can just ask the superintendent to bring a public relations firm or firms before us, or get proposals for the board to consider.
Is that your motion?
Second.
No.
Good. That was perfect.
I wasn't making a motion. Do you want to make a motion?
I'm good with,
What do you-
just as you said, it's just getting late with that.
Yeah,
I know.
why don't we, there's no reason I didn't, well, all right.
You'll need a motion.
Okay, all right. Understood,
You know,
Dr. Castino?
yes, superintendent
All right.
wants to bring back.
You will be able to bring
information that
something.
we can-
I mean, everyone agrees that you've got a lot on your plate, but you'll be able to get something together for
But it's,
distribution.
yes, but it's not just the distribution thing, it's the sitting out requests for proposals to hire a firm.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that too.
Imaging and
Yes.
messaging, all right, good.
All right. 10.3, and I'm sorry if I'm short with anybody. 10.3, to consider if appropriate, approve the learner outcomes to be part of Chippewa graduation requirements. I had no idea this was a staff presentation, or I would have.
It's not a staff presentation, it's a very brief comment to which you will say yes and we can go home.
No, I can't go home.
Just an idea. Okay, you're very familiar with the learner outcomes. I've provided you in the packet with a copy of them. What the work that's been done on them specifically this year is to upgrade the language to the Common Core so that they coordinate with all the other initiatives that we've been talking about throughout the evening. The important thing that happens when you identify learner outcomes with all of that collaboration that we talked about previously is that they become something that is important. There need to be explicit connections in the curriculum. Students need to be very aware that this is something that's very important to them. My proposal is that they be memorialized on report cards and that they become a graduation requirement. Were I you, I would want to say, okay, Kim, but are we going to have kids not graduating because they couldn't prove problem solving? And my answer to that is no. Mrs. Ferreira worked very hard with the staff this year. Not only she is the person responsible, along with the staff, upgrading that language to Common Core, but they also work to identify common assessments so that each child will have multiple repeated exposures with high-level assessments in classrooms, mostly in their junior and senior year, some in their sophomore year, so that every child has multiple repeated exposures to these learner outcomes, that they are explicitly tied, curriculum and our core values, learner outcomes, guiding beliefs, and so that they are in the course of proving their worth and being assessed in the classroom, they can prove, demonstrate that they have mastered these skills. Once they have done that, then they're done. They've fulfilled that graduation requirement. But frankly, you wouldn't be graduating from Chappaq if you hadn't demonstrated them anyway. What this does is it makes explicit connections. It gives each child the guarantee of multiple repeated exposures, and it makes me be able to say to you and to the community that yes, we have absolutely, I can absolutely assure you that our students have demonstrated these outcomes that you yourselves identified when we formed that committee 3 years ago. That is my proposal. Yes. Oh, sorry, Jim.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry.
Well, I just want to say that I love the idea. I think I like the idea of a graduation requirement that reflects actual learning, and not that the grades don't reflect actual learning either, but that we know what it stands for. I would only ask exactly how does that happen? Does
Technically,
a teacher,
yep.
chosen teacher, different teachers?
You know what, Mrs. Ferrer worked on this the most closely. I'm going to have her explain it to you.
Okay, so every department has assumed responsibility. Every department owns one learner outcome. All departments teach the skills, but every department has
I'm sorry,
identified.
I don't think the camera can get you. This is kind of important, by the way.
Oh, so- Every department has assumed responsibility for teaching and measuring one learner outcome. So for example, world language, English, and social studies. From grades 6 through 12 will teach the associated skills for defending conclusions and judgments. And at certain key points in each curricula for grade 10, 11, and 12, they will give common summative assessments with which measure that specific outcome using the established rubric. And it's like that for every outcome throughout the department. So for example, art, music, and tech ed will do engaging the creative process. Math will do problem solving. Science will do problem solving. Some tech ed will also do problem solving. Humanities and world language will do defending conclusions and judgments. And counseling will do answering a call to citizenship. So every department owns a major learner outcome. Every learner outcome has multiple varied opportunities throughout the grade levels.
Any further questions?
Just for the sake of explaining this, what is your most concise definition for the term learner outcomes?
Those outcomes which we expect of all students. We expect them to be able to demonstrate it. We expect them to be exposed to it multiple times in the classroom. The reason, and these are broad, our learner outcomes are broad. You don't see a reading, a writing, a math, a science, and that's why we were chosen as a showcase school 2-3 years ago now. We were one of 12 schools in all of New England that went to NIAS to present how we do our learner outcomes, because they represent broad, real-world learning.
Right, I guess I'm just trying to find a general public way of concisely expressing what learner outcomes
A
cover.
learner outcome is really a skill set.
There we go.
It is a skill set that encapsulates a major necessary career college life skill. So defending conclusions and judgments.
Right.
There's a lot of skills that go into that, but it's a packaged skill set.
Strategic thinking,
Yes.
critical thinking, all
That's right. Yes.
exactly. That's what I wanted to. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
that.
So it's a
sound.
compilation of discrete skills into one skill set that encapsulates a major college career and life skill.
Perfect.
How many are there?
There's four.
Can you tell us what they are?
I can, I've memorized. Engaging the creative process, solving problems, defending conclusions and judgments, and answering a call to citizenship.
Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, unfortunately, all that got distributed that I was able to pull down off of this Google Docs collection is the defending conclusions and judgments section. So but that's all that was on here. I mean, there may be three others, but we didn't see them.
How about if I promise you that you'll all have them in your email tomorrow?
Well, I don't care about email. You can post them here so you can share the documents. It's fine. But unfortunately, this is the only one that was on the shared docs, unless I screwed it up. But this is the only one that I read.
You just heard what they are, so.
No, I understand that, but there's a lot in them.
We'll make sure that they're shared with you.
Could I just offer one suggestion? Is this is all very nice, and I'm in favor of it. It's just that if you stick this in front of parents and say, this is going to be a graduation requirement, I would expect a lot of emails and phone calls, only because it's in education speak.
What will go to parents is the outcome and just the bulleted skills. What you have in there, Greg, it's what's called an analytic rubric. It's what NEAS requires.
No, I understand this is an analytic rubric, which is a good thing, and you education people understand it real well. But what I'm afraid is that there are going to be parents, particularly parents. Probably many of them will be the parents that don't need to worry about this. But there'll be ones who will ask questions and say, "This is a new requirement. What is it?" And they will dive into it. So I think what you need to make sure you've got available to them is an explanation, number one, of what are learner outcomes. Number two, what are the learner outcomes? And number three, what are the skills? What are the package skills? The stuff that's in this rubric. If you could just, I know that this is, if you could just unpack it. You may have already done it, and we just don't have it in front of us. But as long as it's unpacked so that people can understand. So, because a lot of parents want to support the education. And they want to be able to, to press their kids, for example, if they're making an argument, they may want to help them understand what's required of it, especially if they're having trouble with one of these skills. So I just think if there's something out there that they can get to on the website, on the new and better designed and hopefully much less busy website.
The audience for these rubrics is our students. You need to have that because you're the board and you should know the breadth of what we're doing and the depth of what we're doing. The posters that we've had created for every classroom in this district are exactly what you just described.
Okay, thank you.
And Kelly?
I want to congratulate you for, again, being on the leading edge of something here. This is a leading edge, and very recently, the Connecticut community colleges have done the same thing. So when a student graduates, they are aiming to have a skill set, not just knowledge and a discipline. And many colleges are going to the same kind of procedure for the same reasons. They might know a lot about biology, but they can't do all the rest of those skills, so to function in the workplace. There's an articulation that's happening at all these levels, so I'm glad we're doing it. And I also love the fact that the rubrics are plain and insight for the students, because I think it's very confusing for students. When we grew up, it was, what do they want? What does that teacher want?
Right.
And this is,
Part of the learning process is that every student assesses himself.
Right.
As part of before they get into the assessment, so it has to be at least readable and understandable.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the learner outcomes to be part of the Chippewa graduation requirement.
Second. Oh, wow.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
It should all be so easy.
Go for it.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. 10-4, we have communications committee, or policy committee.
Here, everybody has that on?
We're not only other ones.
No, there's plenty.
Yeah,
Unless they're over there.
all right, so what you have in front of you is a proposed new policy that is not existing in our current policies. This is in response to the conversation we had about tuitioning, having students from outside our region tuition in. And I'm sorry you did not get it in advance. The policy committee was still waiting to hear about the review from the lawyer, and so we were not able to get it on a previous agenda. So I want to just give you maybe a minute or two to review this, and then we can kind of point out a couple of the key things.
I have a question.
Yes, Peter?
Can you deny, if you open your school system for tuitioning in, can you deny?
Deny what, a student?
Yeah, legally. Could you deny? Like, give you an idea.
No, but
Yeah.
look at number 4.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
Okay, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about, there's something called 50 that I found out about in your large public school systems. I don't know if the superintendent, that, they get money, students are worth dollars to have in your school system. When a student is flunked out, they lose the dollars for that student. There's a formula they call 50. They give the student a 50 so he doesn't fail out, or her fail out. That enables them to make sure that they get grant money for the state for those students. So what would concern me about any concept is, can we be protected from who comes in and who doesn't come in? How do you protect yourself? Because are you willing to accept anyone? That would be my concern.
Alan?
Yeah, if you look at that's specifically what this policy does. You know, when we brought this up a little while ago, what I felt was somewhat casual advice from our attorney was, hey, protect yourself. So what we did is we went to CAVE, or Michelle went to CAVE, and Teresa DeBrito went to CAVE there she is, to establish what, and she also looked at different school districts, Southington and a couple of them,
Right.
Ansonia's, Stafford, to find out what happens when you do this.
Right.
And the main thing is, and what is so interesting about it, is that you have a great deal more of autonomy and control.
Okay.
And certainly that language is in the policy. There are some policies that very clearly stipulated, this is for the financial benefit of the school system, and if it becomes financially deleterious to the school system can throw the kid out, just for that. Now, we're not being that draconian,
Right.
but we certainly made sure, and the CAVE attorneys made sure, that we had the proper bullets in place so that we were not opening ourselves up to being beholden to the same requirements that we have for our own students in this region. Those are entirely dictated by the state, by the federal government, obviously, as to what we can and can't do. But when we do this, we are offering something to another person whose child is taken care of by their residential district, and therefore, when we bring them in for a fee, it is an entirely different situation. We can stop it at any moment, and also, the idea is if we are concerned about discriminating against special ed kids, if they want to bring a special kid into our system, the policy says yes, but you have to pay the difference. You're going to have this price that we're going to offer you, which is not part of this policy, to educate your child here, and if it's a special needs child, then you have to pay the special needs education aspect of it, which is obviously something we would never require of our own students, because that's a whole different ballgame. So if you're concerned about our opening ourselves up to liabilities, the policy here is what is the first step towards this tuitioning in concept, and the policy is what keeps us from becoming liable to things that we're not already liable to.
Now, the other part of my question is, why aren't we mentioning in the policy what the tuition rate is? Is there a reason for that?
If it's referred to, if you look at it, it's referred to number 3. Tuition rate for each non-resident student will be established by the Board of Education, will be based upon prevailing local cost of education upon any unique educational needs of the student. So basically, it's turning it over to the board to establish, so it's not locked into policy.
All right, so but in answer to Peter's question, the first sentence of the second paragraph, you're saying it's been passed on by council?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. Greg?
So I just want to be clear on that. This has been reviewed not just by CABE's council, but our council.
No, this has been reviewed by CABE Council.
Well, I mean, I'm prepared to move it only because I like what's in here, but I would really prefer that we have an opinion of council engaged by us who bears a professional responsibility to us. I don't know what CABE's council, I'm not sure they bear any. I mean, let's assume that they're totally wrong.
All right, so we can get us.
So I think we should guess it.
Michelle?
Well, I'm trying to remember, I hear what you're saying, but in this situation, I actually think CABE's council, they in essence are counsel to the policies of the entire state. So this is their expertise working on policy, and they're hired because CABE writes the model policy for many, many, many districts in the state. We went to our council's district's website, and they don't have a policy on this. I would not say that this would be his area of expertise. So that's why I actually would choose CABE's advice over this. If we want our own council to look at it, I'm sure we can, but we looked at policies from very, very many different school districts that were very similar and had a little bit tweaked the language here or there. And they were all reviewed by CABE, so.
Michelle, I think what Greg is saying is, if you would try to exercise this first sentence, for example, try to unilaterally terminate the enrollment of a student, and he sued the district, you're not going to be able to bring in CABE's lawyers to defend you. You had an opinion letter from our council, that's the guy who's on the hook. That's the purpose.
How are they on the hook? They just have to
He gave us
defend
an
us.
opinion. Yeah,
We'll still bring him in,
Right?
to defend us.
Yeah, but it would be nice if you had his opinion that this
What
was
if he gives you
legally
counsel?
enforceable.
It's not like he's not going to charge.
Yeah.
I know that, but he's got a malpractice carrier, he gave us the wrong advice.
All right. Well, okay. We
Susan?
can certainly have him.
Can I make a motion to approve this as a
Please.
first reading?
Yes, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor for accepting 5118.3A, non-resident attendance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay. And not because, I want to explain, not because I'm opposed to the policy, but because I would prefer to have council's opinion.
Any abstentions? All right, Michelle, I would ask that before it comes back for a second reading, that we have an opinion of our own.
Okay.
As to its enforceability. All right, 10.5, Mr. Peter.
Yes.
Peter wants to arrange a meeting between the selectmen, if they'll come, and the chairmen of the Board of Finance. Is anybody opposed to that, if the superintendent can arrange such a meeting?
Well, my issue with, does the board want to, I put it on the
asking the board
floor
right
to
now.
find if the board wants to pursue, to have a general discussion with selectmen and finance committee chairmen, since, where are we? Where are we going? I mean, you want to fight the public, the politicians?
I'm asking, if the superintendent can arrange that, does anybody oppose it? Alan?
I think the superintendent is meeting with the first selectman already, but your idea of having the first selectman and the chairmen of the boards of finance meet with us all together could be a very productive, it could be a hilarious circus, you never know. I would suggest we might do this as a retreat. It might be good, so that we can all relax, we don't have to have a whole agenda of a meeting along with it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Probably have better an
I
agenda.
like that. Great
Dr.
idea.
Costa, can you try to arrange that?
Yes, I can.
Sometime this summer. Does that sound all right, Peter?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that it?
I just want to say that it's very difficult for us to arrange things when people don't answer their emails. And that's been going on all week. So if people can, answer their emails, then because, when you're dealing with all different people, it's hard. So if people can check their email every day.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing superintendent's end-of-year evaluation and to review the central office 2014-15 salaries?
Can we have a quick potty break?
Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to have a 5-minute.
Hold on. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Peter?
Second.
Second by Greg. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we're in executive session at 10:06.